to start? You guys ready? You guys ready? Okay, we call this meeting to order. What's the September 16th, 2015 Planning Commission meeting? Let's all pledge allegiance to the flag. Michael, noted, roll call. Noted. Okay, this is a public comment. Anybody wants to speak here has 3 minutes. Something that's not on the agenda wants to come up to the podium. You have 3 minutes. Public comment is open. Anybody? No? Okay. Public comment is closed. Consent agenda. Any questions on it? Anyone? Commissioners?
There's no questions on the
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now we have a public hearing for the San Juan Oaks. And Byron, you want to take over?
Yes, thank you. Byron Turner with the Planning Department. This application is for the San Juan Oaks project. It's entitled Specific Plan Number 006-13, General Plan Amendment Number 13-46, and Zone Change Petition Number 13-147. The Del Webb at San Juan Oaks Specific Plan. So I just want to introduce some of the people you're going to hear from and who are available for questions later. Again, I'm Byron Turner. Shirley Murphy, Deputy County Counsel, is here. To her left is Nadia Costa, the Special Counsel for the county. Josh Janowitz with Rincon Consultants. He's the project planner. Projects such as these, we often hire out and get consultants in working for the county. So for tonight, he's on the county team and throughout this project. Megan Jones, also with Rincon, and then Francisca Church with Fair and Piers, our traffic consultant, and Greg Young with Tully and Young regarding water. So just to tell you how we're going to operate tonight, first I'm going to give the project background. Then we're going to turn it over to Josh for the project summary. Megan's going to handle the information on the EIR process and analysis, and then Josh will close it back up. Then we're going to have the public hearing. The applicant has a presentation that they would like to make, and then we can hear from public comment. For the folks in the audience, if you do wish to speak, please fill out a speaker card. They're located in the back of the room, and then they'll be coming to the podium. Then we'll turn it over to the Planning Commission for discussion and deliberation before we get to a recommendation. So in 2002, San Juan Oaks Golf Club submitted a tentative map 02-67. That was approved in 2004 by the Board of Supervisors. It included 156 single-family dwellings, 30 affordable dwellings, a resort hotel, some village commercial, 27 holes of golf, and open space. As you know, not everything on that list ever got built. So excuse me. Trying to find the. Can you get me the next slide, Michael, please? Thank you. I got it. There it is. In 2013, the county received an application for the San Juan Oaks Specific Plan, a General Plan Amendment, Zone Change, and Development Agreement. So what this plan does is it eliminates the new golf course, and in its place on the golf course footprint, increased residential uses from 193. Increased residential area from 193 to 323, increase the residential units from 186 to 1,084, and increase the commercial acreage from 7 to 14 acres. We have a map of the area which shows the footprint of the 2004 project and today's proposed project. Doesn't show up too well on that screen, but we're hoping to, you should have everything in your packet as well. Get the one. There it is. Sorry. As far as project design goes, it was designed with the new general plan in mind, even though it came in under the old general plan, but it was designed to conform to our new general plan. It's a planned development. Future development anticipated to occur through preparation of a specific plan. So it comes with a specific plan, which you should all have a copy of. The general plan, and it's identified as planned development in our general plan as well. It's also in the new community study area overlay in the general plan, which is identified as areas that are potentially appropriate for more intense development due to access to Highway 156 and 25. The area has existing residential development. There's significant natural resources are less prevalent in that area, and it avoids impacts to the reservoir and the San Juan Hills. That's language, again, out of our general plan. And again, just to show you how it shows in the general plan, plan development, identified as plan development. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Josh to give the project summary. That one, yeah.
It's great to be here tonight, and hopefully I can continue to operate this PowerPoint presentation. Oh, here we go. So, quickly to summarize, as Byron mentioned, the project includes 1,084 units, which is broken up between 1,017 senior active adult residential dwellings and 67 conventional market rate units. It includes an amenity center, which would provide up to 25,000 square feet of recreational facilities for the residents. It would include a 4-acre assisted living facility. It includes a resort hotel, land use with up to 200 rooms, a village commercial component up to 65,000 square feet. The parks, 2 different kinds of parks are proposed on site. There's private parks which would be located in the center of the or throughout the residential components of the project, and then there's a public park component that's approximately 17 acres that would be located near the intersection of San Juan, Oaks Drive, and Union Road. Some additional components include open space within the project boundary that would be maintained by the Homeowners Association. That open space area totals 114 acres. There's a wildlife preserve included as part of the project, which encompasses the southern portions of the project site. That acreage totals 1,243. The golf course component would remain, and that encompasses approximately 262 acres. Some minor improvements to the golf course would be completed as part of the project. And the balance of the project site is occupied by roadway and infrastructure improvements, totaling approximately 88 acres. This next slide here, if I can get it to work, shows the various land uses and their configurations. Just to summarize, because it's tough to see on that slide, there in the northern portions of the project site, we have the the community park area, which is 17 acres. It's near the entrance to the golf course area. Then we have an agricultural preserve as you travel to the south, which is that first red area you come to in the northern portion of the site. Then you have a habitat preserve as you continue to travel south. And then at the entrance to the main part of the project, you have the neighborhood commercial component. And then off to the west, hopefully you can see that sort of reddish component is the residential area. There's just over 1,000 units proposed there in that area, and it's served by a network of connected streets, pedestrian pathways, and also golf cart pathways as well. And then the southern portions of the property are encompassed with the open space preserve that is primarily the San Juan Hills area that includes a number of sensitive habitats, including oak woodlands, riparian areas, and native grasslands. As Byron mentioned, the primary planning tool used to plan the site is a specific plan. Well, what is a specific plan? Well, in the planning world, it's really a tool designed to implement the goals and policies of the general plan. That's one of the primary requirements. It's also required by law to contain detailed development standards to guide development of a specific geographic area. It typically allows for a fair amount of land use flexibility. It also provides a certain amount of flexibility with respect to financing and also flexibility in the phasing of a project. And all in all, it's a straightforward way to entitle a large multi-use project such as this. The specific components included in the plan are the land use and development standards, which really establish the vision for the project, which is to provide a high-quality residential and regional visitor-serving recreational community. It also provides a fiscally neutral mix of high-quality residential housing types, both senior and market rate, and will accommodate visitor-serving activities with a resort hotel, golf course, and local neighborhood shopping uses. It also will provide a transportation network that accommodates multiple transportation modes, new jobs and recreational opportunities, and a comprehensive set of design guidelines which will help ensure a high level of architectural quality, landscaping, and also include sustainable design elements such as green building techniques, road diets, and other sustainable transportation methods, recycled building materials, energy-efficient appliances, stormwater retention facilities, as well as solar energy. The circulation and landscape element of the specific plan would accommodate multiple modes of vehicle travel, including the traditional vehicle, golf carts. It also provides opportunities for bus service to the site, and it also provides a network of connected pathways for pedestrians and cyclists. Last but not least, the roadways are proposed to promote a safe pedestrian and bicycle activity, as well as efficient vehicle travel. Emergency access would be provided as part of this site. There's actually a secondary easement that's proposed to connect this project to the future alignment of Highway 156 to facilitate additional emergency access. And intersection improvements are required as part of the environmental impact report to improve on-site intersections and off-site intersections near the project. Infrastructure and public services would be provided as part of the project. It includes a comprehensive plan for sewer, water, storm drain, and other public facility improvements, such as a future or potentially a future 2-acre fire station site, as well as accommodation for future recycled water irrigation, and also wastewater service by either the Hollister wastewater treatment plant or an on-site package plant. The parks and open space element, as we mentioned earlier, includes a balance between active and passive park areas. For the on-site residents, there are neighborhood parks proposed, as well as an amenity center, and of course, the golf course would continue to operate. The pedestrian and bicycle pathways provide access to a 17-acre community park near the project entrance, which would be available for all residents of the county. Some of the amenities included in that park area include trails, a dog park, a fitness area, community gardens, and restroom facilities. The resource management element includes provisions to manage and maintain the wildlife preserve area. As I mentioned, it does include some sensitive habitats. In addition to the sensitive habitats, there's also a 41-acre on-site agricultural preserve and an off-site agricultural preserve totaling just over 153 acres. The management of the open space would be funded by the creation of what's called a geologic hazard abatement district, which would include an assessment of on-site residents to ensure long-term maintenance of that area. Finally, the administration element within the specific plan provides the framework for the county planning staff to implement future phases of the project. Future approvals would be governed according to the provisions in the specific plan for such things like subdivision maps, a design review process, and a process to review and approve any future use that requires a conditional use permit. A development agreement was requested by the project, consistent with the county code, which does require that a development agreement provide public benefits beyond those traditionally included as part of a project. So some of the key deal points included in the development agreement include the formation of the hazard abatement district, which I mentioned, the formation of a community facilities district to fund public safety infrastructure and perpetual park maintenance, construction of an on-site public and private parks. There's a community benefit fee of over $5.5 million that the county can use for street improvements, affordable housing, public safety, library services, and communication. And there's a provision to establish a conservation easement to ensure the long-term protection of the wildlife preserve area. Fiscal neutrality was an issue considered by the planning staff and the applicant. The applicant actually the applicant's consultant rather prepared a comprehensive report analyzing the potential fiscal impacts of the project. And ultimately, the project was estimated to generate approximately $2 million in annual revenue at full build-out, compared favorably to the county's annual expenditures. The overall project ultimately was forecast to be revenue neutral so long as so long as the developer satisfies his obligations under the development agreement. In addition, a number of jobs will be created by the proposed project. It was estimated that approximately 550 permanent jobs would be created as part of the project, and that was just from the proposed retail and housing-related uses, and an additional 80 jobs would be created as a result of the formation of the homeowners association, the continued operation of the golf course, and the construction of the activity center. In addition, there would be some revenue generated to the local school districts. It was estimated that approximately $2.8 million in property tax revenue would be provided to the Aroma San Juan Unified School District, approximately $160,000 for other San Benito County schools, and approximately $400,000 for the Gavilan Junior College District. And now I'd like to hand it over to Megan Jones, who primarily prepared the environmental impact report for the project.
Thank you. Good evening again. My name is Megan, and I was the project manager for the environmental impact report. So I'm going to discuss that process and our main findings. A little bit of background on the reason we did this analysis was really to comply with the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. The purpose of this law is primarily to inform decision makers and the public about potentially significant environmental effects of a project. So it's ultimately a disclosure tool. So really the environmental impact report the whole purpose is to disclose the impacts of the project so that the public and decision makers can make an informed decision. Along with doing that, we also identify mitigation measures to avoid or reduce impacts. We also try to prevent significant unavoidable impacts or damages to the environment through either mitigation or project alternatives. And then finally, one purpose of CEQA is to provide public with additional opportunities to comment. So we do that through a scoping period early in the process, which I'll go over, the public review of the EIR, and then of course at hearings. So the environmental review started really with the issuance of the Notice of Preparation, or NOP, which was issued in October of 2013. That starts a 30-day public scoping period where we take input on the content or the issues that the EIR should look at. During that period, we held a public scoping meeting. We then prepared the environmental impact report, which was a supplemental environmental impact report, essentially tiering off of the previous environmental impact report prepared for the previous project that was approved in 2004. This EIR was circulated for a 45-day public review period from June 23rd to August 6th, and then the final EIR was released on September 4th. The environmental review was fairly comprehensive. We looked at a variety of issue areas, including aesthetics or visual resources, agricultural resources, air quality, including both construction and operational emissions, biological resources, so that's your plants and animals and habitat, cultural resources, including archaeological resources, historic, paleontology, geology and soils, greenhouse gas emissions and climate change, hazards and hazardous materials, hydrology and water quality, so your runoff and erosion and that sort of thing, land use and planning, including policy consistency with the general plan, noise impacts during, again, both construction and operation, similar to air quality, public services, so fire, police, schools, transportation, circulation, and then utilities, including water supply. So of all of those issue areas, the most severe impacts under CEQA are called significant and unavoidable, or Class 1 impacts. We did end up with 6 of those in 3 issue areas. All other impacts were either less than significant or they were less than significant with mitigation, so we were able to reduce them below some applicable threshold. So the significant impacts, the first is greenhouse gas emissions, and this related to operational emissions from the project, so from your vehicles and energy use. And essentially we did some calculations and the project was over the identified threshold. We did identify sort of a suite of mitigation measures to reduce energy use, reduce vehicle miles, which came close to reducing that below thresholds, but ultimately was not quite enough. So then the mitigation was also to purchase offsets, so carbon credits to sort of offset the additional greenhouse gases. But we ultimately determined that because that offset program has not been vetted or approved by the County Board of Supervisors, and because of some timing concerns with the projects funded by those, we ultimately determined that it was a significant unavoidable impact. For noise, the impacts are really quite related. They're both construction related. One is noise, one is vibration, and they're both to on-site sensitive receptors, or really the residences, so that we did not identify significant impacts to any off-site residences near the project. So this was really related to, you know, as the project builds out, there would be a residence or a home constructed, and there could be construction, you know, immediately adjacent to that unit. So that's where the impact comes from. Again, we identified a series of mitigation measures, but simply due to the proximity of those construction impacts, that could not be reduced to a less than significant level. So that remained a Class 1 impact. But again, that's construction related, so that's temporary. In traffic, there were 3 separate impacts. The first 2 here are the same intersection, so it's the Union Road, Mitchell Road, and State Route 156 intersection. The first impact is under existing plus project conditions, and the second is under background plus project conditions. So the background conditions accounts for some growth anticipated in the area. So it's ultimately a very similar impact. This intersection already operates at unacceptable levels, so the project would essentially exacerbate those problems. This impact would be fully mitigated through the State Route 156 widening project, which is a Caltrans project. However, due to timing concerns, it's not clear when that might happen, and also that it's in Caltrans jurisdiction, ultimately outside of the control of the project applicant or the county. We did determine that that would be a Class 1 significant impact. The third traffic impact was to a different intersection, Bixby Road and State Route 156, under the cumulative plus project conditions. So this is looking quite a ways into the future. Again, this impact would be mitigated through signalization of this intersection, which was also potentially part of the State Route 156 widening project, but recent iterations of that project excluded that, so it's unclear if that's going to be signalized. And again, with the Caltrans concerns being sort of out of anyone's control, that was also a significant unavoidable impact. I should mention the Union Road, Mitchell Road, and 156 intersection under the cumulative condition is assumed to operate at acceptable levels, so that's why that's not an impact under cumulative, and that is because the State Route 156 widening project is assumed in the cumulative scenario. And Francisca here to my right can explain that more if there's questions. As I mentioned, we also looked at alternatives. Under the California Environmental Quality Act, the purpose of alternatives is first and foremost to reduce or eliminate significant impacts, so really those Class 1 impacts that I just went over, and also to meet most of the primary project objectives. So we looked at 4 project alternatives. The first is a version of a no project alternative, so no development, really your existing condition, nothing's happening out there. The next was also a no project, but looked at build out of the existing land use and zoning, so what could happen there now if the project is not approved. And so that's essentially the prior project that was approved in 2004. We also looked at a reduced site development footprint, so this kind of moved uses around, reduced the overall footprint of the project, kept most of the build out. It reduced residential, I think, by 17%, and some other reductions, but by and large a very similar build out. And then the reduced project build out kept the same footprint of the project, but just reduced how much development could occur by 25%. So that's the residential, the commercial uses all reduced by 25%, but it would keep the same open space and conservation features. Through our analysis, to comply with CEQA, we are supposed to identify environmentally superior alternatives. That was the no project simply because it would result in no developments. There would be no impacts. Beyond the no project, the build out of the existing land use was environmentally superior. And then the other 2, the reduced site development and the reduced project build out, would primarily result in equal or similar impacts to the proposed project, a couple of improvements, but those improvements wouldn't be for the Class 1 impacts, which is ultimately what we're trying to eliminate or reduce. So we ultimately determined, and the build out of the existing land use and zoning alternative was the environmentally superior, but did not meet the project objectives. As I mentioned, the EIR was circulated for a public review period. We received 3 comment letters. One was from Hazel Hawkins in support of the project. The other 2 were from Caltrans on traffic, and the State Water Resources Control Board. Both of those letters had really minor, not substantive comments. The responses to comments resulted in 2 minor and non-substantive revisions to the draft EIR, one to clarify emergency access and really just pointing out that that would be gated on either end, and then to update a reference within the traffic section, so very minor change. These amendments or revisions serve to clarify and strengthen the content of the EIR. They do not introduce significant new information or new environmental impacts. Now I'll pass it back to Josh for closing remarks.
So in closing, the county staff, which includes the planning department, the public works, the county council's office, has completed a comprehensive review of the project, including facilitating multiple revisions to the specific plan pursuant to feedback received from all county departments. The development agreement, which we touched on earlier, has gone through multiple rounds of review. The significant and unavoidable impacts would be offset by new jobs, sustainable community design, wildlife preservation, open space amenities, agricultural preservation, and ultimately assisting the county in meeting its housing need. We did do a comprehensive general plan consistency review and found that the project as designed would conform to both the 2008 general plan policies as well as the 2035 policies. And as a result, we are asking the Commission to adopt resolution number 2015-05, recommending that the board adopt or certify the environmental impact report, adopt the CEQA findings, mitigation measures, mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and statement of overriding considerations, adopt the amended general plan, land use, and text, adopt the specific plan, adopt the zone change and zoning text amendments, adopt the development agreement, and finally adopt conforming amendments to the county code. So with that, that concludes staff's presentation, and of course we're available to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So Byron, what's not on that list, or to the staff and consultants, is we're not doing the map tonight or conditions of approval, correct?
That's correct. We're not doing the map tonight, although the conditions, there will be conditions of approval on the map, but a lot of them can be found within the development agreement and the mitigation measures, which will also accompany conditions of approval on the map.
Right, but the other way around isn't true, that there may, in other words, there may be conditions of approval that are imposed when we get to that stage, which are not mitigation measures and which are not in the development agreement, correct?
Based on the subdivision map, yes.
Okay. So when will that second meeting be, if it's not tonight?
We're looking to have it possibly next month.
So after we're done tonight, does this go to the Board of Supervisors?
Yes.
And we only have meeting number 2 if that's
Well,
successfully
actually,
gets through the board?
Next month actually is not going to be the meeting, because you can't approve the map until the zone's been changed, until the general plan's been changed, because the map is inconsistent with current zoning and general plan. So once the specific plan is adopted, the general plan amendment is approved, then we can take the map back to the Planning Commission, and it would then be consistent.
So we got a little bit of time between tonight and when that happens?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions, anyone? No?
Okay, so the applicant would like to make their presentation.
Okay.
The chair open the public hearing, please.
Oh, public hearing is open.
Good evening. My name is John Johnson, and I represent Pulte Homes, which is the owner of the Del Webb brand. And so our proposal here this evening is for the Del Webb component of this development. I'm going to zip through my slides quickly because Josh and Rincon have done such an excellent job of presenting the overall project that we have duplication, so there's no sense of us wasting time on some of these items. But there is some information that I will be sharing with you as we go through. And by the way, I want to thank, before we get too much further, all the staff and Byron and all the team at the Planning Department and the Public Works Department, and also Rincon, Josh and Megan, and all the folks that have worked on that, plus all the the legal staff from the county. They've all done an excellent job. It's been a long, onerous couple of years to do all this work, and it's an enormous amount of work, but we've accomplished it, and I believe it has a very good outcome with the analysis and all the issues around the mitigations and the things that we need to do. So one of the things that was stated that was important was that that we did stay within the current footprint of the original approved project from 2004, and secondly, that our application complied with both the existing general plan and the new general plan that's just been adopted. So we are, I believe, we spent a lot of extra effort with that, and it was important that we do be successful with that, and I believe we were. And then it's already been mentioned tonight that there was only 3 comments on the EIR, one of which was positive and 2 were mostly informational, and one from Caltrans, just that when we get started, we got to work with them on the 156 interchange, obviously, and Union Road. And the other one was from the water area, that it's just basically a permit that we do for water, for drinking water. It's a normal process. So those are the only 2 that we really had. If you would, Tim. Right here. Okay, let's go past this. Go past this one. This just shows the location. One of the things I want to mention in this next one is that all the streets within this community are private and maintained by the HOA. They are not maintained by the county. So many times I'm going to qualify this evening about who pays for what. And in the vast majority of the cases, it's all paid by the development itself. So these are private streets maintained in this whole development around 2,000 acres, and it's paid for by the community. The site plan detail was covered very well, and I'm glad to answer questions on that, but there's not anything more to repeat what Josh just said, so we'll go by that one. The next one is the phasing, and that shows that there is a logical phasing of the Del Webb components and also the conventional housing, and there's a logical steps that go through. And as in large developments like this, residential leads. The commercial will not happen, the resort will not happen until there's market demand is created by people and having people here. So I will talk about that a little bit later, and that we have a phasing program that we will go through over time, and as we build out, we'll see that what happens here. The active adult, the next item is just shows you a sample house. There's actually 6 different styles that was covered in the specific plan. I won't bother to go through those, but just for general information that wasn't there particularly, was the size will range on the active adult from 1,300 to about 2,500 square feet. They're all 1-story, tile roofs. There'll be about 10 models built at the beginning, and which we use for our pricing. Pricing for the houses will generically run from approximately $300,000 to $450,000. That'll be the general price range. They're all solar capable, and they have that option to do that. The HOA fees should be in the family of somewhere between $100 and $200, typically $150. And also with that, the front yard is maintained by the association. So there's a lot of benefits. Besides the amenity center, the association fee does cover a lot of things. The active adult buyer, who are we talking about here? We call them a lifestyle purchaser, and we call them 55 years and better. We don't say older anymore. We don't use that word. We say better. And it seems how I'm in that age group, I think it's better, so I'm not going to use that other word. The people who buy here are seeking socialization and active recreation. That's the important thing that they're looking for here in this lifestyle change. They like to, and we help them set up lifestyle groups that has things such as travel, education, arts, volunteer opportunities. The average age is 62 years old. They typically own a home and have approximately $1 million in assets overall. They want to be within 1 hour of a major airport, which we are. Medical services and a college, they would like those to be close by. That's important to them. and they want a safe community environment. So that's one of the things that we looked at real hard regarding this whole community and this whole county is, our safety is good here. So people will not buy houses in this segment where they do not feel safe. So it's an important factor. And they're very active spenders. These aren't people who put money underneath the mattress and close the door and lock the doors. They are out there in the community, and the retail, the restaurants, the financial services will see a lot of these folks in your community. We anticipate quite a large number of local purchasers. We think there's a substantial number here, but naturally people for a development like this will come from all over the country. And but mostly you'll see a lot of people who are in your own community, which interestingly enough creates other housing, because they sell their house and move into our houses, and then that house becomes available for market rate housing, which is kind of an interesting phenomenon in itself. So we embrace the whole real estate community and ask them to really help us accomplish that. The amenity center will range in size once we finish the final marketing from 17,500 to 25,000 square feet. And it will have large rooms for dancing and general meetings, fitness center, crafts room, locker rooms, administration, pools, very extensive exercise facilities. And in addition, it will have, within the community, it will have parks that support this particular activity, and there will also be children playgrounds within some of those parks, because one of the big visitors to this kind of community are the grandchildren. So we do build the facilities for that. So these parks are private to the community and separate from the community parks, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment. So now we move on to the market rate housing. There's 67 of these, and Scott says he's going to buy this house here because he likes this design. And but they'll range in 2,500 to 4,500 square feet, and they'll have golf course frontage and a separate HOA, and they will be priced, I'm sure, slightly higher than ours, because these are bigger homes. The resort itself, it will have up to 200 rooms, and one of the things about a resort like this is, to explain it, this is not going to be a motel. I mean, this is a resort location. But the resort locations don't happen until other activity takes place. So we need to have the residential activity, the beginning of the commercial, maybe even the conventional homes being sold. When that existing activity takes place, then the resort folks will be very interested in the site and will ultimately help, I believe, the San Juan Oaks folks develop this property. As it stands now, it will never get built as long as there's nothing else going on there. It just won't happen. The market does not support things like that in this particular. So the existing golf club and clubhouse, which is used extensively now by this community, will have even more use. And I just wanted to make this distinction that what the resort gets built there will have its own amenity package and will be something quite different than you normally would see. This is not a motel down the street. It's not like that at all. The commercial on this particular community, this is just some sample drawings we could be there, is strictly neighborhood. It is strictly neighborhood. It's very important that we make that definition, because we hope to have like a small market, a medical, coffee, bakery, insurance, financial services. We see those kinds of uses. And I should say that on my picture here, there's Bajaj Fresh. We're not going to see one of those there, folks. That's not going to be there. But this is used to show architecture more than anything. When we're all built out, and again, commercial follows residence. As they say in the industry, you got to have roofs. When you have roofs, then you can have commercial. So the Del Webb project will create this demand, and when we are built out, we'll have approximately in the whole community about 2,000 residents in that particular number. We average 1.67 people per home. That's been studied over and over and over, and that's what we have, because we do have a lot of single buyers. And so besides the commercial, there's also a certain synergy that's developed for the assisted living. We've called it assisted living, But today, no one just builds assisted living. They also put skilled nursing with it, and also they put memory care. So some developer will come and buy this from San Juan Oaks owners, and then they will develop that property. But again, there'll need to be activity going on to support that particular development. The next one is walking as mobility and circulation. This one here I might mention to you is that, and why I even have it up, is that when people move in, they typically have 2 cars. In 18 months, they have one car and a golf cart and lots of bicycles, it seems like. So these folks tend to jump in their golf cart. So when Robert invites me to come over to his house and he's clearing the other end of the project, I typically don't get in my car. Either I'll walk there or I'll get my golf cart and go over and have cocktails with him. That's what they do. That's how they live. Or go up to the clubhouse. The car kind of gets set aside. So we always have many challenges when we have the traffic studies done, because it's not hard to demonstrate this, but it's so different from market housing. It's just totally different. With 1.67 as opposed to 3.5 typically for a market rate home, the number of population inside. We have 5 miles of walking and trails and so forth within the Del Webb part. There's 2 miles down. San Juan Oaks is a mile from the site to Union Road, and on both sides of that, we're going to have a bike trail 4 feet wide when we resurface and redo the San Juan Oaks. And there's a mile of trails within the Olive Oak Park, which I might cover in just a minute. And plus, there'll be a lot of people out there walking on the golf course. Of course, Scott doesn't like to hear that, but the reality is when you have a golf course next door, you get walkers. So, sorry, Scott, but that's what's going to happen to you. Yeah. So, and it's another important thing is that we've also been investigating a connection between our westerly boundary and San Juan Bautista. Might be an opportunity there, but that's off-site and not our property. But we have been talking to some owners, so there's another opportunity for some kind of connection that might be a trail or bike or something, but it's not in our plan because it's not property we own and there's many owners. So with the city of San Juan Bautista and some other folks, we are starting this conversation. That's a future. It's not a promise, but because I can't promise it, but it's at least something we're going to work on real hard the next year or so. I already mentioned that we have bike trails on both sides of the San Juan Oaks. I'll move past that. Within the community itself, the Del Webb, the sidewalks are wider, so there's enough space. Most sidewalks are too narrow, where you can actually have 2 people can't pass each other or walk side by side. We want the sidewalks to be wider, and also the paths are typically 10 feet. And with that, we put the landscaping area, which deals with the storm water and just the pure recharging of the extra water that comes onto site, that we can put it and retain it and put it back into the recharging. So safety is very important, and that's something that we look at carefully. The road improvements, the next one's road improvements. That was covered a little bit, but let me be more specific. On this one, you see that there's a new redo of 156 and Union, and that's in the Caltrans project, and all that design work. And they actually do improvements all the way to our entrance. So it's not, so we have a combination of effort with them, but for us, it's a matter of hiring contractors and doing the work. But Caltrans is not somebody we can call up and tell them to hurry up and do it. But it's our understanding that in 2017, this project is approved and it's funded. And so usually when you get to that stage, it does get built. And I know there's been a lot of talk about this freeway expansion, but it is something I think is going to happen. We will naturally be putting a light on our entrance, and the redo of a traffic light, I should say, on our entrance we put in, and that needs to come early in the project. In the traffic studies, we studied 11 intersections, plus 4 on Highway 156 and 3 on Highway 101. We did not, we don't really have highway improvements, if you would, freeway improvements. But we do have these ones that were mentioned earlier, which is Union Road at Highway 125. We have a turn lane that we're going to be doing there. And then Highway 156 and Bixby and I think most of you know where Bixby is. And that one, again, is the Caltrans directed. So that one, they don't know, frankly, they don't know if they're going to put a light there or not. But we're making a contribution for our fair share costs, so that, let you know that we are a part of that, but yet we don't have control over making it happen. In addition to that, in the traffic, and I know it's always something that comes up in every public meeting I ever attend, is you know, what are we doing about traffic? Well, these are some of the improvements that we talked about, and Megan covered those very well. And Fair and Pairs, they did a really good job of analyzing all these particular things. We're paying fees of $5.7 million in traffic fees, so that'll help carry the way. Roadway improvements, we've covered that very good. And one thing I want to mention to you is, if you go to roadway go one more, Tim. If you can see, this is a comparison. If you can see, the top one is a normal, active adult housing and neighborhood commercial. If it was built like that, you would have these kinds of trips. If it was a single-family housing and neighborhood commercial like we've proposed, you can see the trips that are on the bottom here as compared to the ones on the top. And so that's, you can see it's 46% for the active adult, and on the second one it's 52%. We just don't create the traffic that you have in a normal retail and market rate housing community. So these people are not typically in the commute. If they do work, most of the time they do it on the internet and in their own home. And also many of them do consulting of different types, which means they don't go. They're just not in this 8 to 5 thing we see with market housing. It's just not, it's not happening. So it's just something to know about in this type of consumer and what he does. The next item is the Olive Hill Park. And on this one here, it's more, this park is more passive. And there's a couple of unique things about it, is that we are putting some shade structures. We've got almost a mile of trails within the park. And also there is the olive tree agriculture will continue, and we want to work with the county with that. This park was approved by your Planning Parks Commission, and we went through a lot of discussion about that, two or three meetings with them. And also it has respect, and I think this is important, for our farming neighbors. So we're designed it in a way that we're not going to interfere with the farming next door. So that's an important thing. And so we talked to the farmers that own the land next door, and so we're trying to work with them in that category. The community park, one of your highest things in the park in your general plan was to have a dog park, and I think this is a good idea. This is a community park, and the park where I live, down the street from where I live, is, it seems like almost nobody walks to it. Everybody drives a car to it, it seems like. So people do come out of area to come to dog parks if they're done right, if you have the right amenities in them. But in this park, we also have a community park garden, and we have an active park. And last but not least, after visiting with the folks that have your historic park out south of town, we thought this would be a good opportunity to promote and educate the people who come here about the San Juan Valley agricultural history and the history in general. So we are going to do some storyboards on this location, and we will be working with the San Juan Bautista Historical Society on that. I will go, the next one's a green building. I'm not going to go through this. It's a long list, and the only thing I can tell you is who's really asking us to do this. It's our customer. We do as many green building things as we can, because it's what our customer expects. They want us to build green, and they do look into these things, and it's important to them. And they're coming into a new home, and they want it as efficient as possible for their own use. The water conservation, again, we do high-efficiency toilets. Tankless water heaters is what we're using throughout. And the drip irrigations, we're meeting or exceeding all the standards of the state. And I know water has been a lot of conversation, and it's in the paper every day, and there's a lot of attention. And even if it was just if we didn't have a drought situation going on, we would still be doing these things, because again, having grass, just big grass lawns, does not make it for this customer. And it's also one of the reasons they don't want big backyards. We take care of the front yards, but it's another reason that these folks, they don't want big backyards. They've already had the big backyard, and they don't want another one, so that we pay attention to that closely. And the next item is utility and service systems, and most importantly here is that we are contracting with Golden State Water. They are one of the largest private utilities in the state, and they are, many of you have heard of like Cal Water, and this one's Golden State. It's from Southern California. They serve 75 communities around the state with their water. So they will actually own and operate the water and sewer system that we put here. And so it's important that we make that clear to you. It's not going to be the John Johnson Water Company running this one, because that's the last thing Pulte would want to do. We want to have and by the way, they also get our PUC approval, and they take complete ownership of that whole thing. We construct it to their specs. We build it all, and then as mentioned, Mr. Young has been here. He's been studying water around here for a long time, and we've done through a lot of analysis on that, and we do have adequate water for this particular project. And we'll also be utilizing the regional water waste system. In other words, we will be building a sewer line to the Hollister sewer plant. And that will take another step in this process, which is once we have the supervisor's approval and your approval, then we would do a LAFCO with the city. We have talked to the city. They have written a letter, and they have also the correct things that have taken place in their policies and how they can connect to a project like this. So they will be, we'll be doing a LAFCO application as soon as we have the supervisor's approval. We are preserving 194 acres of Prime 1 ag land. There's 41 some acres on site and 153 off-site. That was mentioned, but it's important because it goes into a long-term permanent, and that will be managed by your local San Benito Ag Land Trust. So that's a local management capability will be done with that ag land. And then we have 1,243 acres in the wildlife. This has always been used for grazing. It will continue to be used for grazing because it's actually one of the best fire protections that you can have. Also, it doesn't interfere with your biological sensitivity issues that you have, and we do have them here. So it does that. We will set up this, it will be managed by Wildlife Heritage Foundation, which is a well-known association, a foundation, I should say, around the state of California. They manage thousands and thousands of acres. And by the way, the cost of all of this is paid by the residents who will be living at San Juan Oaks, not by the county or anybody else. You will not be asked to do that. The development agreement, I will not spend any time here, other than we had one small correction I'd like to ask about, is on 2.3C, two little i's. We had a communication error, and we are funding the first 4 years of the negative until all the tax rolls kick in for the community parks that we're building for the community. That number was placed in error. It was $80,007, and the actual number is $40,007. So with that, Nadia can speak to it earlier, but we'd like to have that correction made if possible tonight. And I believe the number was supported by Joe in the finance department, right? Gonzalez, right? Yeah. Joe Paul, yes. So we'd like to ask to have that one number changed. We are paying into the county $5.5 million that will be paid. And early in the time we started working with this, it's a sizable number, and initially there was thoughts about, well, we'll put so much money for this and so much money for that. And after working with staff for some time, we said the county knows best how they want to do these things. So it's best that we just say, use them for these things, whatever you choose to use them for, and that way the county can decide how they would like to spend that money and on what rate and how much for this and how much for that. But some of the things that that we looked at were, the library and all kinds of, there was fire service, library, county communications, street improvements, affordable housing. There's a whole list of things that they talked about. So that money would be available at the county's discretion. And we've agreed to pay that in the development agreement, which you're approving for us tonight. In addition, there's a CFD, and that will fund public safety as we go through build out. We will create demand for public safety, in other words, fire and police services. So this CFD will fund the amount that was negotiated and put together was ultimately at $200,000 at build out, and plus the $52,800 for the maintenance of the county parks. So, and that was, I referred back earlier about the first 4 years are negative because we don't have enough house closings going on until we catch up, and then at that point it would take over. But the CFD is again paid for by the residents of this community, not by the county. Financing money, it's always a conversation. Every time we do development, it's always a topic and a concern of the county and a concern of ours because we have to understand our cost as we develop a property. In our particular case, we will be paying over the life of this by build out to the county over $31 million in building, engineering, and impact fees. 31, and that's not counting the 5.5 I was just talking about, or the CFD. And the city, for sewer connection fees, would collect something around $9 million. Yes, sir.
Within that group, are you going to be paying school impact fees as well?
We pay, what we do is, under state law, and the active adult pays 51 cents per square foot. So as we pick up building permits, about $1,000 a house will go to the school district. And the others pay the full rate under that. And the state law, called the Sterling Law, allows us to pay 51 cents. But I do have another number coming for you that in another slide here in just a second. But on this one here, let me finish this one. I want to come back to it because that's important, right? So as an example, I just picked out one department. Public Works, from these fees, will have over the next 3 or 4 years, over $2 million in fees will be paid just for the Public Works Department. And so that supports the staffing and the requirements that you have. And I know it's always a problem for the county and cities to finance their activities. So this is a pretty substantial, it's $40 million we're paying in a very short period of time, frankly, that comes in from the impact fees. I will jump forward to, well, let me just stay in, I'm coming back to it, Mr. Rice. If we do it after build out, and I always want to make that very clear, after build out, that means we're all built out, the community will create over $1 million as Josh created, and that came from, he didn't create it, but it was in our economic studies, but it was on his slide. So there's over $1 million would go into the general fund. And that does not include, if you took out and only did residential, let's say not one commercial got built, nothing else happened, then we would still be positive by 150,000 or so. And if you can go to the next slide, Tim. And at build out, so we're putting 60 or 70, no, we're putting probably about 125 children in the conventional housing. That's 67 lots. Those would be going, but they're paying the full fees, which I believe is about $3 a foot. So on a 4,000 square foot house, that's about $12,000. But in addition, at build out, without us putting any students in the school district, we'll be paying $2.8 million into that district every year. Every year out of the tax rolls, $2.8 million will go to that school district. And 160 goes to the San Benito County schools and 400,000 to Galvin College. That will happen every year at build out.
May I ask a question? Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Almost.
I want to make sure I understand that last.
Sure.
When you say you, it's not Del Webb, though. It's the homeowners that live there, or this is additional money from Del Webb?
This is from the homeowners.
So it's the property
It's off of their,
tax.
it's the property tax.
Okay,
Yes, it's
thank
their
you.
property tax. I should make that more clear. This is the property tax, so a portion of all of our property tax, like on your home and my home, goes to the school district.
Okay.
And so when we are built out, this is how much money today, in today's dollars, will be going to the school districts.
I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure I understood.
So,
Thank you.
I hope I didn't cause any more confusion with that. So everybody clear on that one? It's a major number. And what's nice about it is that we're putting it there and not putting students there. So it's very, very, and all our schools are just challenged, really challenged. So this is great to help them like this. And also this does, let's go to the next slide, Tim. And so at the end of the day, we're going to create permanent, within the county, 547 jobs. That's what's important. Those are the permanent jobs. During the build-out, there'll be hundreds and hundreds of jobs created. But the important one is that 547, which is a pretty substantial number of jobs. And as an example, just in the Del Webb community, because once Pulte builds out and we leave, if you would, there's still a whole organization there. There's the HOA. There's all the people who manage and take care of this community. And so between the golf course and the HOA at the Del Webb, there'll be over 80 permanent jobs out there. And so Scott has a number of those jobs already today with the golf course, but we're going to add even more to it as at build out. We'll be at that number. So with that, I'd like to conclude. I'm sorry it's took quite a while, but there was some nuances I wanted to give you about the customer, and I'm available naturally to answer any questions tonight. And thank you very much for letting me present this. And I am asking you for your approval, and I hope that you can do that this evening. Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions?
Yes, I do.
You have a question?
Yes, on the last phase of the project, the commercial and the hotel,
Uh-huh.
did I understand that Pulte or Del Webb will not be building that phase? That phase will be sold to somebody else to build?
Yes. And probably, let me answer your question. Let me come back to a step. This is actually a joint application because Pulte or Del Webb will only own the active adult section. The balance, commercial, the existing golf course and clubhouse, the conventional homes, and the resort are owned and will continue to be owned by San Juan Oaks, but is anticipated, and we have set up our documentation in a way that they would particularly sell these to individual developers who will come to you through the specific plan and say they want to build the commercial buildings, as an example, or they want to build the resort. Then they come back through using the specific plan for your approval. But no, Pulte does not build those. We only build homes. We don't build these other uses. And frankly, you will see other developers because typical developers don't build all of these diverse types of products, if you would. Okay?
Then on the revenue neutral part, you said that it would include the hotel and the commercial.
No, to be revenue neutral? No.
I had
What
the same question. So are your economic numbers based on, in any way, on what San Juan Oaks may or may not do in the future?
Yes, and that was studied by an economist who came in, and we actually used the county's budgets and, how do you collect money and what your costs are and so forth. And we analyzed, if you recall at the end here, we analyzed two ways. One way was where everything was built out, including the resort. That would create over $1 million per year in surplus of the cost that the county would have for providing services. Then we said, okay, what if the resort or the commercial and some of it gets delayed? What does that mean? So we could actually be built out of all the residential, and we are still positive by $150,000 a year for the county.
But with the development agreement actually says that the project is, and it includes all of the different phases. So now San Juan Oaks will be also signing that development agreement? How does that
Yes,
work?
yes, we both signed this agreement. Yes, we do.
So the development agreement is actually with San Juan Oaks for the commercial portion and some of the other things?
Yes.
And it's with, all right, what if San Juan Oaks doesn't do that? What if they don't decide to do the hotel or something? I mean, you know, this project has morphed over and over and over again. But then basically, your portion of it, you walk away from it. When the houses are done, you're through with the project. Is that?
Yes,
Do I
yes.
understand that? Okay. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So I think that San Juan Oaks has a substantial investment here. We've spent an enormous amount of money to get it to this point. And the previous project did not happen because it was economically not viable. It just didn't, it couldn't happen. Because golf courses, the cost to operate and to have, and building the resort, you can't just build a resort and hope they come. It doesn't work that way. You've got to have enough synergy of economics going. With the Del Webb, and that's why the San Juan Oaks folks came to us and said, we would like to see about building an active adult here that will create that momentum for the community, and that will allow them to sell and move on with the development of the other parts. Also, our folks will create the demand for the other parts as well, because we have these people there. That creates the demand.
Thank you.
Okay? I hope I answered your question.
Thank
Did
you.
I?
Yes.
Did I? Okay. Any other questions for me this evening?
Commissioners? No? Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
speakers from the public?
Yes, we have public speaker cards. Jerry Thone.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jerry Thome. My wife and I, Denise, are lifelong residents of San Benito County. We recently retired. I was a building contractor, built a lot of homes in San Benito County. The last 25 years, I retired from the city of Gilroy as a building inspector, senior building inspector. So I've seen a lot of developments in my life and a lot of construction. My wife and I recently went to Manteca and visited Del Webb in Manteca. It's a very nice community. The development, the rec center, everything, the pools, very well kept, very nicely done. The houses, we walked the models, look very nice. It's a very nice development. It's something that my wife and I, as seniors, retirements, we feel the need for something like this in San Benito County, where we can retire, maintain a nice quality of life, and again, he said everything that we're looking for. Be safe, a community, a place where maybe we can have a pool, but not have to maintain it all the time. Have a gym, not have to have a gym membership. Those type of things. We, as retirees and community living here all our lives, we see the need for that in this county for our seniors, like myself and my wife. And I just like to say that I've seen what they've done in other places, and I really like it. And I hope that you folks approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, we'd like to take a 10-minute break. Okay, 10-minute break. It'll be a 10-minute break. So.
How are you?
Good, good.
Is there a specific kind? Good evening. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Pretty good. Is there a specific condition that you're not looking for anything like that?
Oh, I'll be short.
As a mitigation measure?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
were
no.
you trying to add something? Because if you wanted to add something, you wanted to sooner or later. Potentially, was there a specific concern that you had?
No, it's just a matter of, okay, what are we doing here tonight? What I understand is we're looking at basically the environmental document, which is premised upon the basic idea of what the project's going to be. Therefore, zone change general plan, get that, and the development agreement. But we're not getting out the map. We're talking about landscaping and all that stuff, right?
Well, there's a specific plan. Surely you know about what degree that you have control of those things later.
I hope a bunch, because I didn't want to get into any of that tonight, because otherwise we'd be here forever.
Okay, Shirley?
In fact, he and I are friends. But I'm never going to fight against that project.
No, I don't. I'm not responding right now.
So this table's costing $3,000 an hour.
Oh, tell me about it.
And
They're enjoying themselves.
God, it's sickening. This is why anybody is First of all, the timing was terrible. So I told him,
Yeah, I got 5 acres of that. First time when I got a lawn, drive on lawnmower and everything. No. Let it go.
I haven't talked to him.
I'll get to it. 2 weeks? Oh, then your grass is like. Yeah. Vendors take a lot of work.
You can look at the last floor and you recognize it.
You don't cover it.
So I find it very interesting. I was really fascinated by the fact that
The hardest work.
So what is your name? And you're with It's engineering.
Yeah, makes sense. Print time, we gotta print our name here. Political science course? Political science? Economics, Lauder and I, we argue a lot at dinner. We have different view of opinion.
They're also not speaking. So basically, just slow down, but it's still handling. How are you? Del Webb? I was going to say a few things. That should be nice. You have a satellite, the one you create, partnership. It's one of the better ones. You know, if they had, if they were to, for example, start right now, I think about the because everything's all apart. That's what people like to the kitchen.
There you go.
Look at this. Design a community where you have all the houses have porches and the main street is all cars with a car to the back. And the street, yeah, it's for walking. You only walk in the cars. Yeah, I've seen some good ones. Well, acceptable use of it. Yeah, of course we
Talk about, oh, we said we could use this, and they said, you know what, screw it. Let the county decide how they want to do it. So we can come in there now, and say, well, no, but I think I'm very familiar with No, no. And this is the plan, is get in there. I'll get them before the board on Tuesday. Your guy. Oh, I see. Gave me, and get it, it's so in here. Give them a copy of the development agreement. Highlight that section. And get it in there and say, listen, and get that before the board, before Monday. Work with the worker. And, you know, and plant that seed now so that this was this month.
Yeah. Now it's gonna be
Okay, yeah. The Rays gonna bring fibro. No, it's not. Yeah. No, it's possible. No, of course it does. You turn it off.
You know what he said? The guy said mostly if you live in an area like that, you do grab your golf cart. I used to live in Richmark. All the old guys, they weren't driving the cars. They get in a golf cart, roll down to the watering hole, and get drunk and then come back up. Ready, Byron? Okay, meetings to begin. Right, 3, okay.
Larry Martin.
Remind the speakers they have 3 minutes.
Oh, the speakers, reminder, 3 minutes.
Okay. My wife and I, we currently live in the county, live in Hollister, and we are retired, and we had been looking around at some retirement communities. And we have been over to the Del Webb community in Manteca, and it is very nice. It would, and it looks like that the community that's proposed to come to San Juan Oaks will be just as nice, if not better. But the location, I think, would be more desirable than some of the other locations that we looked at. In San Jose, they have a retirement community, Evergreen in South San Jose. It's an older community than the Manteca Del Webb, but they don't have any amenities that are on the same scale as the proposed project over here. And so my wife and I are really looking forward to being able to purchase a home over here in San Juan. The location is just really desirable. It will be near to the ocean, Monterey, Carmel, the national park, and I believe that I believe that 55 and 55 and better citizens would look to this area to come from different places in California and even all over the country to purchase a home here, to live in this county out in the San Juan Oaks area. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Smith.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Thank you for your time. I'm here to support the project, and I would ask you to vote for it. I fit almost all of the criteria. Moved here in 1995. My kids were small, raised them, went to college, helped pay for their education at UC Berkeley, go Bears. And so now we're empty nesters, and we're looking to downsize, and we're looking to move to San Juan Oaks. This project has everything that we want. And I'd also like to mention one thing that might have been missed is that since I work for a large investor-owned water utility similar to Golden State Water, there are other financial benefits that the county will realize in the way of potential franchise fees and business tax because they are a for-profit business. So that's something that might be kind of minor, but it's big. As an employee for a large similar investor-owned water utility, we also like to give back to the community and join service clubs and support charities and all of that. So again, thank you for your time tonight, and please support the project.
Thank you.
Tony Ruiz.
I'm not here to support the project. I don't think it needs any support. It's a no-brainer. Since 2005, I've been traveling this country as a new urbanist, attending a lot of conferences on new urbanism, and have visited many senior citizen centers like is being proposed, including Manteca and Lincoln and others. And without a doubt, I feel this one, and I know quite a bit about it, because Scott's my friend. He tells me everything. It's better, it's at par or better than just about everything I've seen. The few exceptions are those that run 4,000 or 5,000 that really have amenities. This is not just another development. It's the first real senior citizen development in San Benito County. It's very unique. And I want to say something. There's a lot of people like myself and the people that have spoken here that they say, I want to do this, I want to do that, but it's more than that. This is an old community. There's a lot of people out here that just can't stay where they're at. We're a fine example. We live 7 miles out of town in a large, beautiful home surrounded with fields and all that, and you get to a point where you just can't keep driving into town. There's a lot of people like us. The house is too big. The landscaping, there's too much, time-consuming, and of course it's auto-dependent, which is more so in this community than any place else. You know, a lot of people, they don't want to go out looking for a senior citizen community anywhere. And that's because we've been here a long time. This is where our families are and our friends and so on. We shouldn't have to. And so, you know, that's more of a, personal thing with a lot of us. Like I said, I've seen these houses. I'll tell you something. When I visited Manteca, first of all, the size and range of the homes is proper. It's adequate. That's about how big they should be, 13 to 25. The price of the homes in today's market is more than reasonable. The design and amenities provide for a diversity of lifestyle, social contact, privacy, health, transportation, and proximity to community. It's only about 6-7 minutes from Hollister. The floor plans reflect the research I have read. They provide comfort and utility, and outdoor amenities blend and complement the open interiors. And finally, we have a responsibility. By 2050, there's going to be 87 million seniors in this country. Right now, there are about 43, and that's 65 and over. If you include the 55, then it'll be in 15 years, we'll have over 70. And finally, what I'd like to say is every community is different. For example, Manteca was a Greyhound bus stop, and so was Lincoln, and then all of a sudden it mushroomed. So most of the homes that were built by Del Webb there were bought by outsiders. That isn't the case in Hollister. This is an old community. We have a lot of people who have been living here a long time, and so instead of having 5 to 10% people buying from a project like this, you're going to have more like 15 or 20. And I noticed, oh, I still have 38. The other thing, the other thing is, I'd like to say this community is very, very, very unique in that sense. The other thing I'd like to say is this thing of jobs. You know, they talk about the jobs they're creating, but there's also going to be the second flow, and that's the generation that comes in to support this population. They're the ones that have kids, and they're the ones that are going to need other kinds of housing and so on. So the jobs...
Thank you, Mr. Riss.
The jobs that they're going to create are much greater than 500.
Thank you.
Okay.
Marty Richmond.
Good evening. I'm Marty Richmond. I'm from Hollister, and if my apologies in advance if I have to leave early. I am interested in what everybody has to say, but I'm having a little problem with my back, so I'm looking for sympathy to open my thing. I'm going to be base and gross. I'm going to get right down to it, and that's money. I spend a lot of time in this room. I think it's fair to say, as much as most of the public, I come here and I sit and I listen, and I can't remember a meeting we have with the County Board of Supervisors where money isn't at least half the discussion on every single thing we do. And we have enormous amounts of services that need money. And these are important services, like I've talked about the ambulance service to take juveniles to special psychiatric hospitals. We don't have one. It's a big deal for us because we can't afford one. The service, many of the people who use our public hospital district wind up having to get their bills written off as charity or as just written off because they are not employed, and even if they have the Health Care Act, it doesn't cover the cost. The truth of the matter is, this is going to be a very positive economic shot in the arm. There's very little risk on the county's part. It's going to be an enormous amount of money. Our total agricultural take in property taxes here comes out to $22 a person a year. That's all on our ag land, our total ag land in the entire thing for the general fund. You can't buy anything for $22 a person per year. Let's be reasonable here. This has enormous. You'll be able to pocket the TOT money, whether it's 8% or eventually goes to 12%. If there is a tourist thing there, it will be an attraction that will get people there and then move them on to the pinnacles, because that's the way it works. People stop at a nice place and then they move on. The amount of property taxes you're going to take in for the schools where there will be no students except for the 67 out of 1,100, 67 units that will have children, and you're going to just put that in your pocket to be able to educate our children. This is an enormous amount of money. I think there's going to be, I think on worst case this will be revenue neutral, but I think in best case it's going to be enormously revenue positive. And we need that because with the current amount of people we have in the county, our problem is we have difficulty paying the overhead. I know we're getting technical here. But look, you got to have a director. We know that from the homeless. You got to have a director. The director gets paid in many cases so for some project. The overhead to build anything like a homeless shelter is enormous, 12%, 14%. Everybody wants their cut of the pie. If you don't have a base, you can't have an overhead. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marty.
Good evening, Ruth Erickson from Hollister. As a long-time active board member of the Friends of the San Benito County Free Library for 32 years, I'm happy to see there could be some consideration for the county library, which will be enthusiastically used by the Del Webb active seniors for educational and recreational endeavors. I visited some Del Webb developments and am impressed by them, but I do see the impact on local facilities, which I hope will be considered by the county with the financial and economic benefits described. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Scott Fuller from San Juan Oaks. I just want to briefly reassure the commission that our owner, Ken Gemelli, who's in the back, will be signing the development agreement, and we are obligated to do our part of that development agreement. San Juan Oaks has a huge investment in this property. In October, we will have operated this golf course for 20 years. The golf course is a $30 million investment and a first-class golf course. We are partners with the Del Webb. This is the perfect project for us, and this is a perfect project to take our property to the next level. And those elements that are on our side, if you will, of the development, the commercial, the resort, et cetera, are going to be made possible in part by the Del Webb project. So I want to reassure the commission that we are going to live up to our obligations in the development agreement. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you.
You're not getting away that easy.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Nice try. I think that's the question. I mean, what in the development agreement would force you to build the hotel or the commercial? Because you've been in this room, as Marty said, a lot of times too, and you know that the big plum from a public entity standpoint is not residential. It's TOT tax, it's sales tax, it's all those big revenue generators. And if the concept is that we're going to put in over 1,000 units of residential and then maybe these big financial generators, maybe someday, who knows, then the question we have is the money right?
Yeah, I understand. Okay. I understand the question and the concern. So first I want to reiterate that the economic study showed, I'm going to say worst case here, so which is what you're referring to, I think,
right,
showed that even worst case, if for some reason the commercial and the resort never got built, it's still revenue positive to the county just from the residential. And all the benefits that were outlined of the school benefits, the property tax benefits, the open space benefits, et cetera, occur. So I think the commercial, it's clear that when we start the second, third, fourth year of the Del Webb, second, third, fourth, we start having a lot of residents there. The commercial just absolutely naturally makes sense. We've already been approached by some people, including Hazel Hawkins, who wrote a support letter, who's interested in perhaps a medical clinic on the commercial site. So I think there is very low risk, particularly that the commercial would not be built. I think it goes hand in hand with the Del Webb. And if for some reason the structure of our agreement was that the commercial was on the Del Webb side, you probably wouldn't be asking this question, I think. But it's really no different that it's on our side because it's the same market. It's their people. The resort, you know, as Commissioner Lowe mentioned, we've had different iterations before, and I appreciate that. We have had the resort approved for some time. We had Canyon Ranch at one time that met with several Board of Supervisor members who were interested. It happened that the economic downturn hit at that time, and they went away. So I think the resort is a more difficult attainment, but I still think it is going to happen when the synergy happens from the Del Webb project. And whether we have a master developer build our elements, or whether it's John mentioned, it is apportioned out to different builders and different operators who specialize in those areas. I think the commercial is sort of a no-brainer. I think the resort will take longer. To answer your question directly, we don't want the development agreement to say you must do it, because the market has to be there, you know. So I'm not going to say that we would agree to say at a certain point you must spend this money to build a $20 million hotel facility. You know, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I don't even know how you, I don't think you can say thou must build something, but on one of these tables, speaking of the finances here, and just to get a little bit hardcore about this, it says that the project at full build-out will be $1 million income positive revenue over the year at full build-out. And what I heard Mr. Johnson, I think, is that right? What I heard Mr. Johnson say is if you don't do any of your stuff, it's only going to be $150,000 income positive. So it seems like it's cutting it pretty close.
Right. That doesn't include the CFD, doesn't include the $5.5 million, et cetera. But yes, it would be 150,000 positive.
Can I ask a question of staff too? When this development agreement was being negotiated, did the negotiations look at it from both angles? If San Juan Oaks at full build out, so to speak, and then if San Juan Oaks doesn't build commercial resort high income housing?
The fiscal analysis was peer reviewed
Both
by
ways.
Yeah.
Okay, and you took that into account within your negotiations. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Wait. Not that quick,
Yes,
Scott.
Commissioner Lowe.
Scott and I, we go back 25 years on this project? It's been 25?
20 plus.
20,
yeah.
20 plus?
Yes.
Okay. I think that, you know, I go back to when it was approved the last time. And one of the big conversations we had was about that hotel and how important that hotel was to San Benito County. And looking at this phasing right now and seeing that as the 5th phase, that's just really not where I want it to be. And, you know, I understand that you have to pay your bills too. But is there any way that you could move it up in some way? You know, is there anything you could do?
First of all, the phasing is, you know, the phasing is flexible. So in theory, the hotel could come sooner than the 5th phase if the market was there. I think showing it in the 5th phase was trying to be realistic about when it might occur. I don't know how, the hotel to me is market driven. It doesn't do any of us any good to build rooms that then are not occupied, that then provide no TOT. So I don't see, we would certainly build it as soon as it is economically viable.
But, you know, Scott, I mean, really, realistically, in San Benito County right now, a nice hotel, I have to believe that you would have customers for it. But let me ask one more question then.
Okay.
Let's
Sure.
move on here. The San Juan Oaks itself will probably not build or run the hotel. It will probably, you will find someone else to do that.
Yes.
Will you actively start looking at like phase 3 or
We're
5 years?
we have talked to people recently.
So in other
Yes.
words, what
now.
we were saying is that tomorrow, if the right deal came along,
Oh.
you could move forward with it.
Absolutely.
So
Yes,
you
I just
are
don't want to, I don't want to be
actively-
unrealistic, but absolutely, we are actively looking. We have met with people even recently.
So you are actively looking?
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay.
Okay.
And nothing in these approvals or this development agreement would prevent you from building the hotel in 2016 if for some reason that were to materialize?
No, that phasing is flexible. It is
You have
there to
flexibility.
show that there is phasing and what might be a logical progression, but we could build it sooner, definitely.
Oh, Mr.
Super
Chair, one
Bowl
more
package.
question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I said Super Bowl package.
Yeah.
Exactly. The impact fees, like the traffic impact fees and on the commercial and the hotel, that will be totally separate from the housing impact fee?
Yes, we pay
And
that.
that will be negotiated at the time. I didn't see anything about the impact fees in the development agreement for the commercial.
No, it is in there.
It is in there. I
Yes,
missed it.
and it's
Okay.
treated similarly to the residential. Different amounts, of course, because commercial, office, et cetera, have different amounts of fees, but it's treated the same way.
It's capped right now?
Yes,
Okay.
right. Okay, thank you.
Don't run off.
One more question. Scott, one more question.
Don't run off. I actually have a question of both the commissioner and you. So 25 years ago, when you were discussing this, was this a 55 or older community?
No.
No, it was a
We
greater
weren't
impact
55
community
then,
with,
Ray. See,
with much more, right?
That's the problem. We weren't 55 then. We made it to that.
We've waited this long.
And by the way, Mr. Johnson, 55 or older, they're called geezers. Geezers, okay? That's a surf term. Now you're cool. So actually, the fact that we have a senior community only with much lower impacts makes it sort of work a lot better without the hotel. But I'm of the mind that, you know, it's not you build it and they will come, but if the market demands it, it will be built.
Yes.
And it seems to be happening in this cycle, and this could happen sooner than later.
Well, that's what I'm hoping for.
Me too. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Brad Sullivan?
I'll try to be brief, Commissioners. I was coming in to say that this is a very good opportunity to put your new general plan, new community study areas, a thorough, specific plan is very good. And it shows the kind of sustainability and flexibility having a municipal level of sewer and water and sustainable. But hearing this last discussion, I grew up in an area where there is a Del Webb near Lincoln, and I've seen a synergy that came about, that when you build the active community in a two-bedroom house, you don't necessarily have room for the grandkids. And you don't want the grandkids up at Gilroy Hilton or even all the way into Hollister or into San Juan Oaks. So I think that will bring it. Also, my office has been approached by a couple of hotel developers, and I said, why don't you talk to these people? And they say they already have. So part of it is, as part of a specific plan which defines that neighborhood, they're more likely to invest in it. You know, no one wants to invest a luxury hotel or some, you know, nice, you know, or tens of millions, if not more, investment, and then have some other use go into it. So this defines the use. This would give that investor a lot of reassurance moving in. And that's what I've noticed in the Lincoln area. There are actually nice hotels in that area, not on the project, but in the area, that there were no reason to be there but for the Del Webb project. Because Lincoln is like halfway between, you know, a Sacramento or a Tahoe. You're going to go the other distance. Manteca, too, has actually had some nicer hotels built. And you know, being someone who's, you know, sister's the planning director of San Joaquin County, you kind of ask why. You know, why would anyone stay at Manteca? Because, you know, we grew up when it was Spreckle Sugar, Holly Sugar, and a large feedlot. You know, so no one stayed in a town called Lard. You know, and but you've got Del Webb. I mean, it's kind of raising the bar for the whole town, and that really brings me back to the new community study area, the specific plan here. You've really raised the bar for all development, all residential development in the county. I mean, the level of municipal water, it's not wells. You know, a sewer system, it's not septic tank. There's a sustainability built into that specific plan that you get no other way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that's all the speaker cards.
All speaker cards. Okay, so no one else? No.
I just wanted to make mention of the connectivity around the San Juan Oaks Pacific Plan area, that for Parks and Recreation, it is connecting the 156 roads that are being planned by Caltrans in 17, and it has provided for a good kind of public recreational space at the mouth of its entry. And hopefully they are planning to connect along the hillside into San Juan Bautista in a recreational fashion that would connect the St. Francis Retreat, the Fremont Peak, and the Old Stage Road, the Anza Trail, and on into the Mission in a way that the San Juan Bautista can create its own recreational trails to meet that up. So what I'm saying is that with the bicycle pedestrian kind of issues that we have, San Juan Oaks is doing a very good job at creating a linkage that we don't have to go after later on, that they're providing a good space that will connect with Hollister and the future River Parkway. So I'm very excited about the whole property plan, not just what the community of Del Webb will bring, but what it will bring, how it will connect our communities. The other thing is the hotel. The Chamber of Commerce is developing a wonderful tourism type of plan, and they just came out with their visitors guide, and in there on page 2021, it has a 3-day stay for Hollister in our vicinity. And so it describes to someone investigating the area what they might do in 3 days. And so they are actively going after hotels that will create a buffer zone for the Monterey Bay and Santa Cruz, where people can come here and stay, investigate our wine trails, our bike trails, the pinnacles, and then, because it's a more affordable space, take a day trip to Monterey, a day trip to Santa Cruz. So I think it's a win-win situation. If a hotel could come in there, but if it doesn't, there are more going to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Rodriguez, Commissioners. My name is Christina Chavez Wyatt. I'm speaking this evening as a resident, a mom, and a small business owner. I'm asking you to please support staff recommendation to consider some of the benefits referred earlier this evening, as well as a few more, including the ability of the public to access and use various improved and new facilities, host events, and access programs at San Juan Oaks that already attracts from organizations from outside of our community, including Gilroy and Monterey County. San Juan Oaks is a jewel of our community. We also need to consider investments in our elementary schools, Gavilan College, CSUMB, with little or no negative impact on the schools themselves, making it possible for opportunities to grow continuing education, healthcare, physical therapy, hospitality, and culinary arts programs. Additionally, adult housing provides opportunities to nonprofits for growing ranks of volunteers, as Mike referred, and potential donors. Retired and soon to be retired active adults may seek to provide consulting services for entrepreneurs, as well as form new small businesses, and additionally attract their children and their relatives to our community to do the same. We have a lot of existing opportunities within our existing business parks that are perfect for such businesses. We also will be bringing in active spenders in our community to invest locally in our retailers, restaurants, arts and cultural events. Their investment will help support and encourage more service and entertainment businesses here. The ability for our active adult residents to reside here with an exceptional quality of life, close to their families, providing love and support for our active working families and their children. I'm familiar with examples referred earlier this evening as my in-laws moved from Hollister to the villages in San Jose for the similar opportunity. The resort potential resort location opportunity offers a big attraction to hospitality investment in our county, as well as leveraging the interest and investments recently in tourism marketing, as Valerie referred, by the county and the city of Hollister in the recent past. And in regard to the timing of the hotel, just as Commissioner Pierce referred, we need to see how the recently renovated San Juan Inn and the new Marriott Fairfield do here, to see if there's a market demand for that potential investment. And last by no means least, we also need to consider the Del Webb San Juan Oaks proposal raises the bar for offsite investment taxes and fees nearly $40 million that will benefit our region as a whole, both in the now and into the current and to the future. Thank you for your consideration tonight.
Thank you. No more speakers? Commissioners? Any questions from anybody?
Public comment closed.
Okay, public comment is closed.
You know, I think one thing that concerns everybody, especially now, is water. And we didn't really go into it, so perhaps we can get a little more in depth on water supply for the planned growth and how it
Is one of you guys in charge of water? Maybe we hear it from the water guy.
Water guy?
Yeah, my name is Greg Young with Tully & Young, and we did the water supply assessment that is part of the, it's Appendix J or K, I believe, to the EIR. This project was investigated as to be fully supplied by groundwater, and there was a full analysis of the basin, both in dry conditions, multiple dry year conditions, and normal wet year conditions. Used a significant amount of data produced locally by the San Benito County Water Agency, or Water District, I think it is, sorry. Too many agencies and districts running through my mind right now on other projects around the state. They annually analyze groundwater conditions. Todd Groundwater is the consultant who has been working in this basin for a number of years and has significant information produced to demonstrate how historically the basin has both dropped and come back and dropped and come back. So it recovers and recharges based on how it's managed by the County Water Agency itself as part of a conjunctive management with federal surface water that is brought into the region as part of a contract it has with the Federal Bureau of Reclamation under a Central Valley Project contract, which this year was zero. Recently, last few years, it has been low, but we analyzed a long period of record with both lows and highs and looked at the information that both the agricultural users, their historic use of groundwater and federal water, and the response of the groundwater basin, and demonstrate that during all conditions, the basin is going to be able to be sustainable with this additional demand. It's a minor demand from the broader scheme of things. I think it was estimated at about 400 acre-feet annually. And actually, that's on the conservatively high side as far as the demand. A couple of things have happened since this analysis was completed. At the state level, there were some additional landscape ordinances that have been passed at the state level that the county is going to have to put into place by the 1st of December. A lot of the specific plan talked about very native landscaping and natural low water using landscapes throughout the community and at the yards themselves, at the residences. But in our analysis, we assumed those a little higher because we'd rather be conservatively high. Because of those new ordinances that have been passed by the state, it's going to definitely lower by some degree those demands. So even our analysis showing that there is ample water supplies over time will be, the demand will actually be a little bit lower, likely. One of the things that's really important to recognize, this is a phenomenon that happens in several areas around the state and occurs in this basin that's called the San Juan Subbasin, which is actually essentially a little bit to the west here, and it is that basin along with Highway 156, and it is separated from some of the basins that the Hollister actually relies on. That basin has what's called rejected recharge on a fairly consistent basis, and what that means is there's a fair amount of water that runs down when we do have normal or even below normal precipitation years that does not get absorbed into the basin because the basin is full. And so it continues on down the watershed out of the county, you know, onto the coast. As groundwater levels are drawn down in drier years, the water easily recharges into the basin, and you see the basin return and respond back up to when it's full, and then it's rejected again. So the analysis that has been done historically, showing the levels as they have been moderately bouncing around groundwater levels, you will anticipate to see that continue to happen with a little bit more recharge occurring that is otherwise rejected right now if with this project's additional demand onto the basin. But I think it's important to recognize that that basin is estimated to use, and it varies depending on the agricultural operations that are occurring, the federal water that is brought in on the surface, but essentially uses in the extreme ends historically about 11 or 12,000 acre feet of groundwater, and we're talking about 400 acre feet for this project of an addition on top of that. Now the groundwater also goes as low as, I have to look at the numbers again, but 5,000, 4,000 acre feet annually, and then can bounce up to 10,000 or 11,000, maybe even 12. And so it does this on an annual basis depending on availability of federal water, crop conditions, precipitation conditions, commodities, you know, what's being driven, what people are growing, et cetera. Is that, that's kind of a quick, broad overview, but does that help provide a little bit more insight into the water side?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I-
Commissioner.
The recharge, though, that's happening by the water district actually filling those aquifers.
It happens from several different occurrences. One is the river itself, the natural runoff that's flowing down through San Benito River. When there's not space in the, you know, it's got a sandy bottom, and it's very good sandy alluvial soils that go down into the basin. That's why, you know, agricultural productivity is really good along this area. Good soils are not really tight, so the water actually absorbs easily from the river flows itself. Secondly, you have the wastewater plant doing recharge. And third, you do have active recharge from San Benito County Water District from water they're bringing in. Some of that is directly put in, and others is when you serve the surface water to somebody who also has a well, they can turn off their well, and you get what's considered a passive or in lieu recharge back to the basin.
Okay.
So a combination of things occur. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So when you studied whether the aquifer would be adequate and so forth, did I hear you say that you did it hypothetically considering no blue valve, or with average amount of blue valve, taking a historical record into account?
And I apologize for not being familiar with vernacular, but blue valve, I'm assuming, is the federal water.
Right. Right.
I think I have heard that referred to in that sense. The analysis looks at what's considered a normal year, although we don't have normal years in water. It's always one way or the other. It also, it's by statute in the California Water Code, it's required to look at a normal year, a single dry year, and a set of multiple dry years. And so what we did is we did an analysis in those different cases where in the single dry and in the multi-dry years, the federal water supplies were significantly dropped, where in the multi-dry year, I think the first year was, and I can look to find the specifics, but I know in the third year of that multi-year, there was only 10% of the federal water coming of historical average of agricultural deliveries, which is actually less than the contract amount.
Right.
So there is a contract for greater amounts of federal water to bring in that are not purchased at this point in time. They could be, but we didn't consider that, and we just said, well, let's look at historic use of federal water and what's the contracts have allocated over time, and then reduce that down that in a multi-dry year condition, took it as low as 10% and looked at the average uses of groundwater when there is very nominal amounts of surface water and where that variance occurs, and created a situation of what the mix of groundwater and surface water would be and the demand on the basin. And that demonstrates that the demand doesn't move outside of the zone of where it historically has moved. Total use on the groundwater basin from the highs and lows of groundwater use. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. There's several charts included in the documentation, and fairly detailed analysis included, and then references to a lot of the work the good work that Todd Groundwater has done for the County Water District over time. Mm-hmm. Is where a lot of the underlying data comes from.
But just to overly simplify things, you created a worst-case scenario and studied it, and this development will be okay even under a worst-case scenario, as regards.
Yeah, as far as the federal water, worst-case scenario on the federal water.
This aquifer is strong
Yes.
enough to maintain the development even.
That's what's demonstrated from
Scenario.
the recharge conditions and the response conditions of the aquifer from when there is high groundwater pumping and low federal water. And then the response, again, when you have a normal year that comes back, it refills that basin right back up.
Greg, I have a question and a backstory too. It's like the federal water, all of their valves are painted blue, so we call them blue valve.
I like it.
So
Simple is good.
I went to a water workshop recently, and it was talking about the groundwater basin in San Juan Bautista, and basically said, thanks to the San Andreas Fault, which works as an underground dam that holds the water in place over on this side of the county, that essentially that groundwater basin is at like 90%. Okay, so I've got a pretty good visual of 90%. So if we're going to draw down from this project, is it going to take it down 10% or 5%? Or can you give me a visual on percentage of groundwater aquifer?
I would say that in the basin on average, noting that this project is on the eastern edge of the basin, so the effect on hydrology and how that works over the distance of a few miles across the basin, or what is it, 5 or 10 miles across the basin, I think. You probably would see zero change down in San Juan Bautista, and you might see some elevation changes, minor, occurring closer to the project itself that would then again rebound. So I would say that it may not even be noticeable.
Okay.
I think, and let me reiterate what you just stated there, and because that's an important part of this rejected recharge concept, and that is that the western edge of the basin essentially has a little underground, for lack of a better visual, underground dam because of the fault and the bedrock formation. So it's got this big bathtub full of sand that's filled up with water, and it only does it spill out of the basin when it comes up to the top of that dam, which is a little bit underground, before it spills. And so there's a lot of water here, which is another reason why it's easily recharged when it draws down a little bit, because the water doesn't leave. It doesn't just kind of dissipate out of the basin like it does in some of the Central Valley towns and some of the aquifers in the Central Valley, where the basins all drain to the big river. And they will just keep flowing and keep draining out those rivers, or those basins. They have that potential to do that, where this case, with that kind of the fault creating a dam, you have a more robust aquifer in San Juan Basin.
And I've seen that. I'm on the water board. I live at a place called the Ashford Highlands, and I'm on the water board there. And our well is actually down close to San Benito River. And we had a drawdown of 2 feet, and then it recovered. It recharged and came back up a little bit, like about 6 inches over this 9 years of drought. So it's pretty amazing the way our water works in this area.
Right, and you contrast that with some areas in the Tulare Basin, which have lost 100 feet, 200 feet of groundwater elevation.
Yeah. So water is a concern, and I appreciate you exploring that and detailing it for us.
Commissioners, another question?
Yeah, I have questions here.
I got my list too.
Do you want to go first?
No?
Okay.
Just don't steal my stuff like you always do.
Okay. The secondary road access, where is that coming from?
I'm gonna hit economics.
It's coming from essentially the center portion of the site along the northern boundary. So there's a proposed easement that would essentially traverse the distance between the existing Highway 156 horizontal alignment and the northern boundary of the project site.
Okay, but is
So
that is actually a road?
No, it's proposed to be an easement currently.
It's an easement, so that means it will be a
If in
dirt
fact-
farm road?
Well, it could be a farm road, or if it's ever determined that formal public road access or equivalent access is needed to access those areas, then it could be ultimately built out with a traditional 2-lane roadway with curb gutter and sidewalk. But currently, it's just proposed to be an easement.
So as the project moves forward and we're building 1,000 homes, that could stay a dirt farm road. Is that correct?
It could potentially, yes.
Okay.
It will be paved. The applicant has clarified. It will be paved. It will be a paved road, not just a dirt road. I apologize.
Okay. Now, will that just be emergency use, or will there'll be no second access into the project itself?
Correct. It's just for emergency uses only, no continuous access from 156.
All right, so there's a major event. Now, that will be allowed for the people that live there to evacuate, or that will be only allowed for the emergency vehicles coming in?
Yeah. It would be allowed for the emergency vehicles coming in, although it will have is commonly referred to as a Knox box on the gate. So if the fire department decided that it required, there was a need for emergency access and evacuation of a community, then it could open the gates and it could be used for a variety of emergency access purposes. But really it's under the control of the fire department, or the local emergency service agency would manage access using that roadway.
Okay.
Can I piggyback on that, Pat? So that's going to be paid, but is it going to be paid just as an all-weather road, or are you going to have curbs and gutters?
We will not have curbs and gutters.
Okay, thank you.
It just keeps
takes a second to get these things clear, huh?
Direct that question to Tim.
Okay. Thank you.
Pat, can I piggyback on that as well?
Please.
Would that road also potentially be used for construction access while the project's building out?
It's not proposed for construction access,
Okay.
just emergency.
And then that road will only come in after the homes are built? When will that road appear?
Day one.
Day one, okay.
Pat, can I jump on that again real quick?
Pardon me?
Can I jump on that real quick? And it's kind of a question for staff. So the secondary roadway, would you consider this to be growth inducing? We've got a full access road with curbs and gutters. What's to slow things down from all of a sudden we spring up a couple of little villages somewhere off of this thing?
For one, Caltrans does not want it to be a public access onto their road.
Okay. Just had to ask that. Sorry, Pat.
Okay. I guess the two issues that really bother me most is the fire station, because that was going to happen with the first project. Well, three issues. The affordable housing, that the affordable housing is gone, and the fact, the impact fees. And the traffic impact fees now, the way I read the document, are capped at $5,000 plus per home. This is a 20-year build-out of a project. And if those fees go up, which I'm assuming they will in the next year to two, it's capped for this project. Am I correct?
Yes.
So traffic impact fees before the board reduced them were somewhere along the lines of $25,000.
Around there, yeah.
And so now it's capped at $5,000 no matter what happens in the future. And so we're leaving $20 million in road impact fees on the table? Is that?
So I won't speak to the numbers, I'll let Byron do that, but just to clarify that the cap for the fees only goes for 7.5 years.
For 7.5 years?
For 7.5 years.
At what time? At which time? What happens? You
The
renegotiate.
fees go up, and to the extent that they're not billed out within 7.5 years, any build out that would happen after that time would pay whatever fees are in place.
When does that 7.5 years start? With the beginning of the construction, the day it's signed? When does it start?
It's the effective date of the development agreement.
When it's
So
signed?
now, when the board, to the extent the board approves the agreement.
Board approval of development agreement starts the time running.
Mm-hmm. The effective date of the agreement.
But you say in 7.5 years they could go up or be renegotiated, right? I mean, just as an amended development agreement.
True, but that would be within the discretion of the county.
Right, right.
And what about, Scott mentioned that the commercial was capped. So that would mean that the hotel would have to be built in 7.5 years for that cap to be in place?
Yes, the cap applies across the board for all of the uses.
Okay, but it could be renegotiated.
The cap goes away entirely after 7.5 years, so it could either be renegotiated or the county could simply say, you'll pay whatever fees are in place at the time you build.
Okay. I feel better about that.
That's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah.
You should have said that a long time ago, Nadia.
Then the affordable housing, though, that is such a huge need in our community. And we were getting, with 100 homes or 100-plus homes, we were getting 30 houses, 30 affordable houses. With this project, we're getting none. And there's 1,000 homes being built. And it is senior active, but we've got a lot of seniors that could really benefit from some kind of affordable housing. Is there any way we could do something for affordable housing?
Pat, can I answer that?
You want me to answer that?
No, let me answer that real quick, okay? I'm kind of in the business. Right now, according to your square footage and your price on your low end, he's already $68,000 below market. Currently, right now. To me, that's affordable housing. Now, whether it's going to end up being that at market, that's my question, okay? Because he's already got me as a client because I know I'm going to make some equity the minute I buy in. And the 2,500 square footer, he's already below market by 100,000 on that one, according to our current market today.
Okay, are we capping the prices?
I'm just saying, so I'm wondering what the other ones, the off-site stuff that are non-Del Webb, the other ones, I wonder what their prices are going to be and where they are in the market. But as far as market pricing right now, it's pretty awesome.
But there's no cap on the cost.
Yeah. Now you can ask him. I mean, that's just coming from, outside.
When we started the negotiations for the development agreement, when we talked with county management and the staff, there was some dollar amounts that were assigned to of the 5.5 million. We keep seeming to forgetting about the 5.5 million.
No, I have not forgot about the 5.5.
Okay, that's a pretty substantial number, and so with we heard back from the county management was they wanted to leave that discretion. Rather than us say, we'll put $1 million in for affordable and $1 million for the library, in other words, not have us create the budget, but we would give a gross amount of dollars and you can decide how you want to apply that money. If you want to put all 5.5 million into affordable housing, you're welcome. It's your call. It's not ours.
I understand that, but the 5.5 million also could go into the general fund, and there'd be no benefit at all other than general fund dollars.
You may have that right. I don't know.
That's what it says. I mean,
Just a
that's
minute. No. Let's wait. Let's hear what she says.
Yes, the county has sole discretion in terms of how this money is used.
Sole discretion.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So in other words, the county can use that money however they wish.
Right. It can go
Yes.
just into the general fund.
General fund.
Yeah.
Everybody gets raises, right? The high school did.
That's exactly.
Everybody gets raises.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I do. Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The two things that I wanted to address was returning right where we left off, which is economics and money. The thing that's exceedingly difficult, as I'm sure you all can appreciate, is us knowing whether 5.5 is the right number versus 6.5 versus 4.5, because we don't know how you got there. What it sounds like was used to get there was the idea of how much this project's going to contribute economically to the community at full build-out. And what we learned tonight is that full build-out, and I don't know, if you broke up full build-out as 100%, will Del Webb's portion of this project be will they be done when the project as a whole is built out at 60%? So what's the allocation economically between what Pulte Homes and Del Webb is doing versus what San Juan Oaks is doing? Who knows? I'm not going to try to reverse engineer that or get into all that because it seems like it'd be a nightmare. I'm assuming that you all with the county negotiated this over a long time. Like, was it years?
I don't recall exactly when we started, but we have spent many, many, many hours negotiating that term. And if it would be helpful in terms of how the numbers sort of came about, there was, as we've discussed, fiscal analysis happening both from the applicant team perspective as well as the county team perspective. And there was also county management pushed the applicant quite hard to ensure that this was beyond just pay your own way, but in fact that this provided a significant community benefit above and beyond. And so that's part of what went into the numbers. So I will say that county staff came back and tried to calculate, to the extent you had your old affordable housing ordinance in place, what would have been charged at the time. To the extent that there was additional communication monies that the county could use at this point, what would that be? I know there was reach out to the library services. What is it that's needed? So it was designed to be more than just revenue neutrality. It was designed to ensure that there was a very significant chunk of additional community benefit that would validate and justify the project moving forward with the general plan amendment.
That's right, and that's what development agreements are about. Getting the give, we call it. What's developers give? What are they giving? And here it seems like what they're giving, it seems like a significant amount of money, but it might be short or it might be too much. I don't know. What I do know is the board is certainly well equipped to make those decisions, right, and see and really get underneath the hood on those financial numbers more than we all can. So with that, I'm going to leave economics alone. The last thing I wanted to talk about, however, which I had a moment to speak with county council and special county council at the break, is, and I mentioned this at the very beginning, it's my understanding that the project is going to now, assuming there's a favorable vote tonight by the Planning Commission, would go before the Board of Supervisors. It would be a zone change, a general plan amendment, a recommendation for approval of all those things. That stuff needs to happen, then it comes back to the Planning Commission. And my question was, what will be up for discussion next time? And like typically we see not just mitigation measures from an EIR standpoint, but also these things called conditions of approval. And will there be an opportunity to have a chat about these conditions of approval at that time? And where I think I left it from the county perspective is that they encouraged me and perhaps all commissioners, being mindful of the Brown Act, but to maybe have a conversation with county council or the planning office about what are some of the things that we would like to see in these conditions of approval. For example, you'll notice tonight it's 8:30 and we haven't got a site plan out and started looking at it and say, oh, what's this and where's this going to go and how many trees are going to get planted here? But normally we do that, especially with a significant development like this. And as I said at the break, I don't want to do that tonight. I'm hoping we can do that next time. So I kind of want to do two things: put the applicant on notice of the fact that I want to talk about those things next time, and reserve my right to do that later at a more specific level of detail. And with that, that's the end of my comments.
Any more comments? Pierce?
Well, I'm not pro-growth. I'm sustainable growth, and I'm liking this a lot, mostly because if we were going to take 1,000 homes and put them somewhere else without a senior community, this would have a lot more impact on us. So I see that this is more of a giving project, more of, I mean, the position out of the way. It's a village, kind of hidden out of the way. They're taking that whole hillside foothill area and they're preserving it. So as you look across the valley, you might see some of the rooftops, but you're going to see the foothills, which is what we want. So I think connectivity along the old that old roadway, somebody brought that up earlier, which would be a great pedestrian trail or bike trail to get in along the foothills. to get into San Juan. I'd like to see that actually added in and them work on that. There's private property owners in there, so they're going to have to work together with them, but that might be something good for all of them. And it promotes exercise, and we all need that. So, so that would be over by the Windhaven Ranch. They might try making it connective to the River Park Trail as well, but that seems like quite a distance off right now. It just seems like basically we get school impact fees without any impact on the schools. They're 55 and older geezers, so I fit that bill. And I don't go anywhere on any congested days, so I'm not going to put my car out there with the rest of the congestion at peak hours. And I don't think any other 55 or older senior is going to unless they really have to. So I don't think it's going to impact traffic as much because that was my big concern. My big concern was traffic along the Union Road, how we get it onto the 156 if something happened, and then the other one would be, I dare not say this, but if the dam broke, okay? So, I mean, if we have a dam inundation area down there, basically all of the access points to get out of this area are going to be underwater. Now, it's been there for a long time. We've had a number of quakes since, and it just leaks once in a while, and everything's kind of cool. So I'm feeling okay about that, too. I think basically if we're going to have, you know, a project that was going to answer everything we wanted to answer, this isn't a perfect project, but it gets damn close as far as I'm concerned. So I'm pretty much in favor of that.
Can I just add one thing?
Please.
I meant to add on when we were talking about emergency access with what we've seen this past week in Middletown and the Valley Fire and so forth. It's emergency issues besides San Justo Reservoir dam breaking.
Mm-hmm.
If those hills catch fire, folks are going to need another way out of there real fast. So I was really I'm glad to hear that this access road will be made available for people trying to get out of the way of a major wildland fire in that area.
Okay.
I don't mean to jinx anything, and forgive me for bringing it up, but we've all seen the news this past week.
Yeah. The only other stuff, and I think we can get down to some of it, is because of this, I'd like to see primarily stucco exteriors and you know, tile or cement roofs, a fire protective kind of an environment. I know there's going to be a lot of green area around all this and everything too, and it's up against ag, but it's also backs up against the hillside, and more than likely the fire's going to sweep up rather than down. But I would like to see at least those on the outside perimeter areas that would have greater potential of fire, just as a preventative safety measure, if it makes sense. I mean, I don't want to put my thumbprint on here just because I want to do it. If it makes sense and it's safe, then I'm in favor of it. All in all, I'm pretty much in favor of the whole project.
Any more questions? No? So, what the board wishes?
Want to make Josh, can you jump those staff recommendations up on the screen?
The last slide of our presentation. Can you put those up, please?
I can try.
And it's also on page 2 of your staff report.
And Josh, if you could read that into the record.
I would suggest going off of the staff report because the slide was missing. It had an incorrect action item, and it was missing one of the action items.
Okay, Barbara, can you read that off the staff report, please?
Oh, it's the. Oh, I'm sorry.
Or Brian.
Well, it's you want just the wording from
the recommended
page 2?
action is that the San Benito County Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2015-05, and then there is a list of 5 recommendations under that I can read if necessary.
Do you want all those read into the record? Good.
Barbara, do we need them read into the record? No. Okay, then I move that we approve the resolution 2015-05 or 6?
05.
05.
Shirley, you want more specific?
There was one correction requested by the applicant as well.
With changes by staff and commissioners.
Are you lumping them all together?
Yeah,
Mm,
all five.
pretty much.
So
Do you want to break
in
it
the
out?
staff report,
I'd rather you broke them out.
You want to break them out individually?
the staff report is also missing one of the recommended actions for the board, which was to make some conforming, was to adopt an ordinance to make some conforming county code revisions. And so I would just ask that you add that. And then if you're inclined to make the change that the applicant requested, that was to section,
On the dollar amount?
yeah, to
80,000
section
to
2.3C, little Roman numeral 2, to change that dollar amount from 80,007
To 40,000.
40,007.
Shirley, can you say that one that was missing again? Because that's the first I've heard of it.
So it's it's a recommendation in the list of recommendations of what the Board of Supervisors would be doing. One of those actions would be to adopt an ordinance which would make, it's actually just one section in the county code that's not already part of the zoning ordinance, but it's to make conforming revisions to the county code. And that item in the Planning Commission resolution,
It's number 6.
yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to do this.
It's exhibit, yeah, it's exhibit H in the Planning Commission resolution, and it's to amend section 19.11.006, which is within the DA ordinance. And it just adds language regarding the form of development agreements. It adds language that says that in the event and to the extent a development agreement contains different provisions than those set forth in this chapter 19.11, then the provisions in the development agreement shall prevail. This is some cleanup that should have happened with a couple of previous projects that got missed.
Okay.
Okay, so since I have a motion that's kind of hanging here, does staff want to get together, take a break, get together and get this together for us?
It is attached to the resolution in the packet, so it's already there. It just was, it was just missing from the recommended actions at the front of the staff report. So if you move to adopt the Planning Commission Resolution 2015-05 with the modifications requested, that should cover it?
Yeah, that'll cover all of the recommendations to the board that you
That's what I
are
did.
being asked to make.
That's already been made. Are we good? Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against?
No.
Okay, we'll go to the next one.
Why don't we give everyone 2 minutes to clear, and so we can do our.
Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break, so,
5.
or 5-minute break.
Because these people aren't going to leave anyway. We won't even hear the next people. You know?
Okay. What's that?
My wife still wanted to build a big home.
Well, listen, we're going to drag yeah, really. Yeah. Yours was.
Good seeing you again. There we go. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, because there was one here somewhere. Not- oh, okay. So I have to go by. I can go by tomorrow. Go visit Michael there, see if he's working. I'll go visit you tomorrow. I know the address. Oh, science. The next one is consistent with the land use. This use permit. Tag.
Behind me and just tell them you can't be messing around with that money, you can't just go with flush money. That's what scares me.
You know what? You know what gets me upset? We did our development over there on Fairview Road. We paid $27,000 for it. Well, we just.
Got it?
That was for the housing now.
Is it on?
That's why. I really believe that. I wouldn't have a problem with
More benefits.
that. That's what I'm afraid of.
Turner.
They took that money and
First
they
one, second one.
picked it up. We're one of the developers, we had to pay.
It's been 5-6 years. They had 20 million reserves. It's gone. They don't know what it is. No. That's why Greg and I used to be, because we had that Measure T money that the voters gave us. Says, man, you can't mix that. You have to be able to answer the voters where did that money go. I don't know. It's gone.
That's when it's.
Yep.
The homeless.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, do you don't know anybody that knows QuickBooks, do you?
Yeah.
Do you really?
Yes.
Do you think I could borrow them for 15 minutes?
My secretary knows, my wife knows, everybody do QuickBooks.
Is the lady that we hired to
And this goes through it, won't be about
You got my number, son.
The reason is the payment is
I'm meeting with Lee.
second payoff of the money. The second part is the operation. Obviously, I mean, you hire a guy who runs.
Because you need reports, it's really, I mean, I know how to get into it. I don't know how to get into the details of it. I like when I see what's up, receivables and payables, and I'll check on the checks, where the checks are going to. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I get all excited.
Yeah, we'll keep it very steady.
Okay, good.
Go there with the check register, And
Other than that, I don't care about it.
depends on the version. Oh, I got the new version. It's really, my wife can do it, or my secretary. I mean, just as long as you know the passport to get into books.
Give me two.
Guys ready? Ready, Jeff? We had another meeting this month, the 24th.
Oh, crap, that's right. It's during the day, right? Did Yvette get back to us on that?
Yeah, they called her. Yeah, for sure, right here.
She told me she'd call me back to confirm.
You ready, Ray? Okay. Okay, next item, the use permit number 1105-14.
Hey, Byron.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the spice added or stage.
Oh, jeez.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Don't do that to us, Marty. Good Lord.
I'm sorry. That position's the only one. Dr. Gregory, are you here? My chiropractor says that's the way you, thank you very much for being concerned about it.
Yeah, it's okay. I know you got worked up on that sewer issue. I didn't know how worked up.
No, let me tell you what, you get a sciatic nerve problem, you really get worked up.
Okay. All right. Sorry, Byron. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Byron.
Thank you. This project was analyzed both under our 92 general plan, which is the general plan that was in place when it was applied for, but also we've included some analysis confirming that it's consistent with our current general plan as well. Just a few of the policies that apply, land use element policy that promotes support and supports the location of new agriculture-related businesses and industry, and to provide support for the economic viability of commercial agriculture, as well as fitting in with our economic development element, calling for employment-based land uses for a means of improving a jobs housing balance. We did an initial study for this project, and a proposed negative declaration was prepared. The study was circulated. We did receive one comment that I believe is attached from the Monterey Bay Air Pollution Control District. I do have, there's actually, I'll show you a couple of things. This is the original site plan. It has been modified, but I wanted to show that this is what the original site plan was, with the 10 warehouses and 10 greenhouses. The warehouses being located here, the greenhouses here. There's the parking area in the front. Now this has been modified. The warehouses have, the 5 warehouses that are not proposed being built at this time have been moved parallel to the other 5 warehouses, and then the greenhouses directly back here. And these would be screen houses or hoop houses typical to the agriculture you see out there today. One more. Showing the, I want to get one, and there's the picture of the proposed facility. So at this point, staff recommends that the Planning Commission review the staff report, hold a public hearing, hear all proponents and opponents of the proposed project. Staff would further recommend then that the Planning Commission adopt the mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and approve use permit 1105-14, subject to the conditions, the findings and conditions of approval found in the staff report.
Okay. Public comment open.
My name is Ann Hall with San Benito Engineering. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, and the applicant is also here if you have questions regarding this project. But other than that, we're happy with the conditions of approval that the staff has put together, and have no issues with the staff report.
And thank you. Anybody? Go ahead, step.
Okay, my concerns, and I think they're
State your
legitimate.
name, please.
Excuse me?
Could you state your name, please?
My name is David Talavera, and I live very close to the projected site for this development. And my concerns are traffic, and of course, right now, I use Fallon Road intersection and Fairview Road intersection as a means of commuting back and forth to town or wherever I'm going. And 40 full-time workers, 30 seasonal workers, 70 workers at one time, plus traffic, truck traffic. What does the county plan to do about the traffic problems? That's a concern of mine. Runoff, I've been out there 38 years, and I have seen Rosa Murata intersection, Fallon Road intersection underwater. heavily underwater. So we're going to add more concrete, more runoff. So how do we handle that? And those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there a traffic study, Byron?
A traffic study was prepared for this project.
Okay.
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
My name is Angie Talavera, and I'm wife to David. And I worry about the children because we have North County School not too far from us. And right now, we have heavy traffic. We have never seen so many cars go so fast in front of our house. They crisscross over there on Rosa Morada, and then they turn on Dueling, and then they turn on Fallon, and then they zigzag over to Woodside, and then they get to the schools. Now, the point was made that the school has made an effort by directing the traffic to go out when they leave to the right. But these cars that are coming on Fairview, they're coming fast. I can see them right now from my bedroom. And they're coming fast, you know, especially if they're white cars, you know. Okay, well, this unit's going to go up, and I'm probably not going to see those cars, okay? So that's not the problem. We can put trees and hide this building, okay? But what about all the traffic that's going to school twice a day? We have wrecks there in that corner. My own cousin almost got killed there. That and it's that intersection where you come out of Fallon Road. If you go right now and go look at it, you can see where they totally take that barrier that is moving, that is right there next to that house in the corner. If you lived here in Hollister, you know what corner I'm talking about, because the emergency vehicles are always there, always there. So that's my concern whenever, whoever makes these decisions, that you need to look at that. Because the last thing I want to see is to see kids killed. I don't want to see them.
So you know
and
how-
you're talking about adding 100 cars.
So you know how when you say we need to look at that, you know how we do that is that we require a traffic report be done by a traffic engineer. They said they did it. Did you read that? Did you read the traffic report?
And they don't tell you how many how many wrecks there are?
We haven't seen the traffic study, but planning did.
You know what? I used to take my kids to North County. I know Fallon Road and Fairview, and I believe the Public Works is working on doing something on that intersection. That is a very dangerous intersection.
dangerous.
Very.
Is it?
And,
Yes.
and we're having the problem in front of Dueling
We
Road.
came close to having a lot of accidents there.
Yeah.
Because cars are just flying
And
down
we're
Fairview.
having semi-trucks going in front of our house because of the agricultural area there that they opened up. The Felices, I guess, are letting people put stuff over there. I saw 17 semi-trucks go in front of our Dueling Road one day. 17 trucks. And I'm talking about these big ones, not little ones. We got children walking to school, and we have kids riding their bicycles. Thank you.
Yes.
Don't want to see
Thank
any
you.
kids die.
Neither do we. Thank you.
And I grew up in that area, so I know that area very well. Yep. Any more comments?
I can, if you'd like. I
Can you
address
give some
those items.
traffic
Yeah, what
analysis, please?
did the traffic study say?
A
Did
traffic
what
study
did it
was
trigger?
prepared, and according to the traffic study, the mitigation for traffic, it did not include any mitigation for the Fallon and Fairview intersection, although it did indicate that impact fees would be paid, and that is an intersection that impact fees would go towards. And that is what we were speaking to earlier, where Public Works and the county itself, along with the school, is looking at ways to improve that intersection independent of this project.
Okay.
But the traffic study did recommend, condition number 22, that the applicant should construct a project driveway to meet STAA truck turning radius and geometric design standards, and the engineer for the applicant shall include on the improvement plans for this project detailed driveway geometry showing the STA truck turning templates to make sure the trucks can safely exit Fairview Road into the facility. With regard to the drainage, That, again, also is something that would be required to be looked at on the improvement plans. The applicant shall comply with the county drainage standards, which need to show the flow patterns, the details of the retention detention pond, and confirming the adequacy of the existing or proposed storm drainage system, as well as requiring a stormwater pollution prevention plan. So the county standards will apply for this project with regard to drainage.
That's good.
I got a question, Byron. Is there any near future plans about putting a stoplight right there? Or straighten out that's a ugly angle?
It's been discussed. I'm not sure, and this is not related to this project, but stoplights at more than one location on Fairview Road may be necessary to solve that problem. And a stoplight at Fallon and Fairview isn't necessarily going to solve it as much as a stoplight at Spring Grove will.
Yeah. Well, Fallon, it's you creep out and there's cars because of the angle.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Go ahead.
Since staff is stating that the school and our staff and everybody's looking at this, maybe we could just ask that they bring us a report on. Is that possible? Just basically if they see a solution, what the long-term plans are, just so we have an idea of what's going on out there.
Just a report to the Planning Commission probably from the Public Works
From Public
Department
Works, yes.
Regarding what we're doing about that intersection. I know that one of the county supervisor whose district that in is also very involved in it.
That's Supervisor Barrios?
Yes.
So it's on Supervisor Barrios' radar screen as well as Public Works?
Yes.
And Commissioner Lowe, you'd like to check in on the timing for those improvements?
If we could just have some idea.
But as far as these folks are concerned who sat through that entire San Juan Oaks meeting just to have their concerns be heard, we want to make sure that they know that their comments are important to us. What you're saying to them is that the driveway into the development is going to be improved, condition number 22, I think. And as far as the drainage problem we heard about, that hopefully will be rectified by them complying with county drainage standards. So those two things sound like that's going to be okay. But as to the intersection of Fallon and Fairview, that might be a more long-term fix because it's such a problem. But part of their traffic mitigation fees are going to go into the pot used to improve that intersection.
Yes.
Part of the really big problem out there is at Spring Grove School. I picked my grandson up there, and people they're almost backed up from Fairview all the way up to, what is that, that goes up by Carpenter? That would be the Fallon connection across over there, wouldn't it? So they back up on both lanes, both ways. And if you pick up your child or your grandchild early, you're stuck in the middle of that. You can't go anywhere until everyone's relieved.
But you know that human nature says that you're running late, and by the time they hit Fallon intersection, they are hauling.
Yeah.
And, they're not doing 45, 55 miles an hour.
Yeah. Well, and this is not politically correct, but I happen to notice that seems to be young women with kids. Okay? It's just a personal observation, and it's scary as hell.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't had any trouble with the truckers, but the women with kids, man, they scare me. And I don't scare easy, so. Yeah. They're really hauling in there. It's really, it comes down to more of a law enforcement issue almost, as well as a traffic and roads issue. And because they all get in there at one time and out at one time, and they just flood that whole roadway. It's a mess.
Okay, some of this won't be on the record, though. All the comments that are from the public aren't going to be on the record unless you reopen.
No.
Yeah.
You got a comment?
If I may, I didn't fill out a thing. I actually had a near miss at that intersection just the other day. So I have some idea what's going on, and I don't go to Spring Grove School. My kids don't live there, or my grandkids. May I make a suggestion that the only way to solve this in the long term is to do two things. Number one is to check and see if the current speed limit is correct based on that crazy angle that the Fallon Road comes off on, because what happens is you got limited visibility in one direction, and if people coming down Fairview may even be complying with the law, and maybe they're speeding, maybe they're not, you don't have hardly any time to get out there, so you can't see what's coming, so everybody's foot brake gas, you know what I'm saying? And the second thing is, one thing you might be able to do is put the radar wagon out there for a while and see if that improves things, so you will know if... Oh, okay, well, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that. But if you can find a shoulder, you put the radar wagon out there and watch it for a little while and see if keeping people to the speed limit actually improves things. If not, then you're going to have to redesign that. That as long as you got that crazy angle. I almost bought it there the other day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marty.
I don't know if I can talk. My name is Norma Ludergnani, and I am representing United Genetics. And also for us, it's very important to have the safety. And we did a traffic report, and also we are following all the recommendation that the planning department is giving us. And also we are redesigning the entrance and to feed the farther down for Fallon and Fairview Road. So also that will help. And our the nature of our business, we don't have that many trucks coming to our property. They did a study, and we don't have that many trucks. And also, our trucks will be able to enter, turn, and go out the front. So we are planning also that. And also we will have, in case never happened, but one time if happened, we can be put 2 trailers, yes, one, and then wait that the other, cute, okay, and then turn back. So we are also aware of that, and also we are aware of the flooding in that area. I meet with another neighbor of the property this morning, and he pointed that they have been flooding problems in that. And I assure him that we already did a percolation study, and our engineer has also, in the property where we are located right now, 8,000 Fairview Road, have created ponds for retaining of all the rain water that we create, and never I have seen more than 2 inches of water. So they were designed pretty well, and also we will do that because that was a concern from Mr. Rossi, and I explained it this morning to him, and he say, I am okay what you will do, and he say I will not come to the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Norma, I do have a question about your shift. Is it an 8 to 5 job, or do you have shifts? Is it an all-night? Do you have personnel leaving at different times of the day, or do they all leave at the same time?
No, we have at different times of the day because we are agriculture. So some people that need to work in the fields or need to go work in the greenhouses will arrive at 6 o'clock. The office will arrive at 8 to 5, yes, and the warehouse, depending if it's the summer or the winter, will arrive 7 or 8 o'clock.
And then what time would they all leave?
Depending on what time they enter, 3:30, 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and some person stay later, yes, but this is the minimum. And also the traffic, they analyze where they were coming. Some people, in order to avoid Fairview Road and Fallon, they come and they go around, yes, and enter the other way. And they analyze also that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At the it's at the. No, it's up to the chair whether you have the. It's up.
Go to the podium, ma'am. Just make it real. Yeah.
My name again is Angie Do you know how close what she's referring to? We turn in to go into our house, okay? We practically get hit by cars that are coming down on Fairview, okay? And we have a lane to get in, okay? And I have to, hurry up, honey, hurry up, get out of here, because those cars get within inches of you, and we have a lane to go into Rosa Morada, okay? Or to whatever that street is that we go through. Okay, where you're gonna build, you only have 2
Ms.
roads.
Talavera, that's fine.
You have one
Yeah.
road coming and going.
Okay, that's
That's
public. Okay, public comment is closed. Thank you. No, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to propose a motion. I move that we adopt the mitigated negative declaration and the mitigation monitoring and reporting program and approve use permit 1105-14, subject to the findings and conditions of approval found in this report. And I also move that Building and Planning to investigate the status of Fallon Fairview Road intersection improvements and report back to the Planning Commission at its next meeting during director comments, what we used to call director comments, Byron. And can you do us a favor and either email or call these folks and tell them what you find out in case they don't want to come to the meeting in October or 24th or whenever the next meeting is?
Yeah, could I ask that, because we do have scheduled a special meeting next Thursday, and I'd prefer to come back with that report in October, just so the appropriate staff is able to do it. So if I could make that report in October.
But the idea, as I said to Commissioner Lowe, is they're the ones that want to hear, or maybe you guys do too, but they want to know that information, and to avoid the trip, maybe whatever you are going to come to the October meeting with can just be conveyed to them via telephone or email.
Yeah, I can make sure they're included.
Okay, clarification. Do we have 2 separate motions going here, or is the second motion has to be fulfilled before the approval is given for the first motion?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, so I'll break that into 2 motions. The first would be just the passage of this use permit according to the...
Okay, I'll second your first motion.
Okay.
And I'll second your second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
As to both.
Oh, it's to both, or
Yeah.
Yes.
you want to
Both.
vote separately?
There's separate
Both.
motions, but we approve both of them.
Both of them.
Because we're just so efficient.
Okay, is that? We could take a second vote. Just to clarify.
Okay, let's clarify.
Okay.
The second motion, you want
The first motion was, as I said, that we adopt the mitigated negative declaration, mitigated monitoring program, and pass use permit 1105-14, subject to the findings and conditions of approval found in the staff report.
And that was seconded.
All in favor?
to, all in favor? Aye.
Second motion is that staff determine the status from a timeline standpoint for any improvements that Public Works has planned for the intersection of Fallon and Fairview Roads, and bring that to the Planning Commission meeting in October with either telephonic or email information provided to these folks whose name I didn't catch, but so they don't have to show up for 2 hours on that night.
Talavera.
Talavera.
Okay.
Mr. and Mrs. Talavera.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll need a phone number.
Okay.
And you second it?
And I second that, yeah.
And all in favor?
We all said aye, yeah.
Now, anybody make a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
Thank you very much.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And
All
just
right,
want to
thanks
point
for
out
coming,
that
everyone.
You've adjourned to September 24th at 2 p.m.
24th at 2.
And the reason for that meeting, we do have we'll have a couple items on it, but the reason for it is so Bob Braitman can give a presentation.
The LAFCO thing, right? Good.
Very Jeff, we'll see you, huh?
So Marty,
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Which I can't take because you can't take it on empty stomach. Not fired yet. So I got this scale.
Okay, that's the 22nd? 24th September, right?
Thank you very much.
Nice meeting you.
Robert, thank you. Okay. Thank you for your information.
See you, Barb.
Bye-bye.
Middle-aged? Dude, you're not middle-aged yet. How old are you? Hey, middle-aged.